And we are live. Hi, everyone. I'm number one Marmaduke fan. Today, I am joined by Twitter hot take extraordinaire and also the creator
Oh
of
man.
Kyrie, Matt Crotts.
I keep finding the minority takes. I don't understand.
It's like, are you
Uh,
trying to get canceled on Twitter.com, or are you just tripping and finding all of the correct takes to be Twitter's enemy of the day?
that's the question. Yeah, I don't know. I've been thinking about it. I think a piece of the problematic puzzle is like I'm coming at art from a slightly different angle than I think a lot of people. I think you and I have a lot in common. One of them,
That's fair. Yeah.
yeah, like
I feel like
we're trying to figure out like a Christian worldview on
yeah.
this. We're trying to use um, our art school / academic background understandings as well, and we understand what fine art is and what fine art's done to this, and we're not just exposed to like pop illustration over the last couple decades. Like we have a broader understanding of what robots and art, you know, what they have done in the past and things. So we're trying to figure out a broader way to deal with it. So
Because it's easy to mix up like the sci-fi movie interpretation of AI with real AI. Like I think we're nowhere
yeah,
close to like the Terminator Skynet thing, but we just keep getting like
yeah,
these sort of creepy. We get like these creepy hints of it, right? So
I
yeah,
guess
it's
yeah. Like I don't even see yeah. I mean that could be our first uh, thing we just try to tease out is like is there even a slippery slope here? Because I just see an absolute plateau in terms of like I think it's just going to be humans looking at better mirrors that they're making and seeing their own reflection and saying, "Oh no, there's a ghost in the machine," and really, it's just themselves looking back at them.
yeah,
I
like
don't see anything
when it
going
does
on here.
waifus, it does anime waifus with massive anime titty, right? Like it's taking what people make tons of, and it's sort of correctly guessing that, gee, I guess men like that kind of thing, right? But it seems to. So I actually played with it, and when I tried, yeah, so you recommended I like try the newest version of it, and I got to show it somehow because it was shockingly better than
Yep.
the first version of it, right? So
Hmm.
but that's the other interesting aspect is within the course of a few months, it's jumped. So I guess the two basic discussions are how good is AI at doing this, right? Because
Hmm.
if it's lame and it can't make anything, then it's not a threat, right? Like some artists, I think they hate it because it's making ugly images, and some artists hate it because they're afraid it's gonna kill their job. It's getting good enough where it might kill a person's job, but if it's a so the people seem to have different objections to it for different reasons, and not all of the objections line up, or it's sort of like multiple debates about art are happening all at once, and that's what seems to mix up kind of like the AI debate or a lot of these kinds
Hmm.
of art debates on Twitter is people are talking about more than one thing at the same time. So I guess Matt, since you kind of prompted this or started this, could you kind of like for the audience tell us the story of like how you got into AI and
Hmm.
like what's your has your views on it changed at all since you've been playing on it, playing with it? What do you think it's going to do to the art industry?
So my day job has to do with 3D design and animation and taking accurate content and replicating it efficiently. And so AI in my field is it's just understood to be going to be neutral positive because it's going to make things more efficient and you can train it to be more accurate. More accurate than people maybe, and a lot of animation, a lot of 3D animation, and this has kind of become more apparent to me over the last week or so. I think a lot of people think 3D animation. I don't know what they thought it was, but I think they thought it was something other than what it is. And what it is like every Pixar movie you've ever seen is basically AI. Like it's just people clicking buttons
Now,
and
now
then
wait a
a
second. It's
process
AI.
runs.
It's AI in the sense of how it renders, right? Because
Well,
you still have
and
to
how it
animate. You still have
animates.
to animate with Blender. You have to like you sculpt the 3D shape. You kind of like move that 3D shape. which is why like these kind of like 2.5D movies, like Captain Underpants or whatever, or Peanuts, they can imitate two-dimensional. Jenny Tartakovsky is really good about this. His what do you call them? Hotel Transylvania movies. He brought his 2D animation sensibility into 3D animated movies. So what dimension of it is an AI program running or working in 3D animation?
Well, so
what part of the cake?
I guess we have to find like a shared definition of what artificial intelligence is. And for me, like the way I defined it is probably a little more basic than what people are expecting. But I think of it as if it's programmed intelligence, if it's going to make smart decisions based on programming, then that's to perform tasks that people think are smart. It's going to do something that would be challenging for a human to do, but do it faster, with more variation and better. That's how I think of artificial intelligence.
Okay.
It's not there's not like a brain like somewhere in some server in Los Angeles. It's in your desktop. It's in your laptops, your iPads, your smartphones.
But is that different than just any computer program, or is it any computer program,
No,
or is it a computer program making decisions basically?
Yeah, I don't really see if you've ever played around with Maya, for instance, like that's basically, you might think you're animating in Maya, but it's really programmers who figured out how to tell an algorithm how to animate, and then you manage it as its director in a way. But I feel like technically speaking, I'd have a hard time believing that you're animating in any 3D program. Even Gendy Tartakovsky in his animations, as much as you would pen to paper. You've already made a step where you're abdicating the processing of that animation completely to the program, and you're just hoping it comes out in a way that you would appreciate, and you're often surprised by what it comes up with. So I think what's going on here is that people like that just sounds like gobbledygook to most people, and that's fine. And this is why the game and movie industry readily adopted AI art generators so quickly, because they saw, oh, this is just like what I do with my day job with animating and model, like all that. Rigging is basically AI nowadays. Like there's so much that's like an automated process.
Till it hit Twitter, right? When it hit Twitter, then it became like a hot take thing. So let me
and everybody knows what drawings are,
because I have your Twitter threads in mind for context. So you've been basically taking the unpopular position of trying to defend AI as a really interesting creative tool with lots of creative potential. So it's sort of like look past the creepiness of AI and think, what can you do with this thing? And part of your argument seems to be looking at the history of technological tools like photography, kind of like lowers the bar for what it takes to be an artist or an illustrator. Photoshop and Illustrator, Adobe products lower the bar of what it takes to be an illustrator. But then some of the pushback I've seen you get is a program like Adobe Illustrator or Adobe Photoshop, it's simplifying aspects of the art process, but it's not changing sort of the idea or the creative input aspect of the process. So to me, the most it's kind of like the most dangerous thing about AI is also the most interesting thing about AI is, can it be an idea generator? Could it replace concept artists entirely? Or could it become like a crutch where we use this thing to just generate all of our ideas and then we don't sit and think of ideas anymore, right? So it's sort of like the good thing about it is the bad thing about it, which is it could simplify all this work, or it could speed up the process of generating concept art. But will it take away from an artistic process of creating this yourself and describing it yourself? Like I mentioned this in my video, but it's almost exactly like my old art teacher debate, where my traditional painter art teachers sort of thought Photoshop was going to be the death of art, and kids weren't going to know how to draw anymore because they'd just be
Yeah,
doing
people
everything.
have forgotten that was absolutely there's I mean, maybe it's not one to one because people are bringing up slightly different detailed things about how much creativity you're plugging in to this program as you're clicking buttons with a mouse or a stylus. But I don't think there's a material difference between Photoshop and this. Like that's probably why I'm like in an extreme minority. But again, like this is like it's because I think what's going on here is animate like everything that you think is beautiful about uh, Marvel movies or Star Wars TV shows or any of that is done like this with procedural inputs where they just collage together photos and they collage together algorithms that they steal online and they don't source and they don't pay people for, and then they play around with it and they get original content out of it that looks completely inspiring and improves the quality, and everyone gets to go home to their family faster because it took less time to produce. Like and that the only difference from a professional like from that industry's perspective is that now 2D art, static illustrations are being treated like animation has been for the last 7-8 years.
Okay.
So
Now,
that's like a, and that is very upsetting and surprising to people because most people know what 2D art is and they understand there's a core, like they might not know how to paint in Photoshop, but they understand how to draw on a piece of paper. They don't know how to make a video game. So they're not aware that that ship has already sailed. So
all right, I want to pick your
that can be
brain.
an argument. Like maybe we got to turn the ship around. And
I want to
so
pick your
maybe
brain.
that's what's going on.
Yeah. So I feel like it's two different debates, though. Like the Photoshop debate is a debate about will the tool replace our skill set, and the AI debate is will the tool degrade from our ability to think about art, right? It's what kind of crutch is it? So the Photoshop and Illustrator, the argument against Photoshop and Illustrator is it's replacing a skill done by hand, and the argument against AI image generation, well, I guess there's the copyright. See, it's another issue. There's the copyright issue and the intellectual property issue, and maybe the issue of is this even idea generation at all if it's co-mixing a bunch of ideas. But I kind of know from my own art practice that when I'm drawing or designing, I have to look at reference. I have to look, I look at art books, I look at photos, I use Google, right? And Google's one of these new tools that allows me to
which is an algorithm.
network.
It's one of the biggest, it's probably the most famous AI on the planet that everyone is fully okay with.
But the problem with maybe the problem with the argument of saying it's like Photoshop and Illustrator is people could take that two directions. They could take it the direction and say, oh, okay, AI is just like. By the way, I've got your window displaying, so I can see you've got Akira in there. All right, who is an AI? So sorry, anti-AI folks. I have a perfect excuse to use AI art. My character is literally an artificial intelligence. I get to play. Okay, look at that. It's connecting his bow staff to his tail. Nice. All right. Yeah. So where was it? Okay. So if one argument is, oh, okay, AI is just like Photoshop, therefore AI is okay. Then the other could be, oh, you're right. AI is just like Photoshop. We need to return to tradition. We need to throw away all the Adobe products and take up cave painting again, right? Like maybe that argument could cut backwards as well. Like maybe our old timey art teachers were right, and kids these days copying Goku and that Japanese crap, it's going to destroy all of art.
Yeah, like either way, at least that would be more consistent, I think, than saying this step has gone too far. But every movie I enjoy and every TV show I enjoy, it's completely okay that what I think of as animation is entirely a figment of my imagination that comes from behind the scenes Walt Disney Studios documentaries and maybe falsehoods that Pixar animators have led me to believe, when in reality it's all just point and click, trying to figure out procedures that are going to.
All right, I want to push back on this. So if it's
all
just point and click, why does a Genndy Tartakovsky animation look different than, I don't know, like Hoodwinked, which is really crappy and jankety. Three, like it still seems to be there has to be a human director or human input that's determining
Oh,
whether
sure.
this CGI movie looks good or this CGI movie looks like phoned in. I was going to say
Well,
old
it's
school VeggieTales, but VeggieTales was kind of like a innovator in this entire field. So that I don't want to throw shade at VeggieTales.
sure, sure. Yeah. Well, like, okay. So, what do you think of how does Tangled rank in the pantheon of 3D animation movies for you?
Okay. I I just did. I didn't. I'm just going to speak artistically because I don't know anything about the special sauce behind the scenes, right? So I thought
Mm,
Glenn Keane was behind that one, and he's an
hmm.
animator, right? So it's the same kind of guy. He does 2D animation. He's a master in that field. They have him do the character designs for Tangled, and so Glenn Keane does Glenn Keane stuff, and the result is a character who has his sparkle. You can see that his expressiveness and his pencil tests were the direct thing that the 3D animators used to make the final character. I guess one of the things I
Yeah.
didn't like about Disney leaving behind that era is it just kind of it's kind of like they lost something that made them special. Like their most special era seems to be when it was like this father to son, master to apprentice relationship of old school, guys who worked on Pinocchio, training the guys who ended up working on the 60s movies like the Black Cauldron, right.
Mm,
So it's almost like a recreation of the master apprentice guild system in a Hollywood studio. Then when you
hmm.
take that and you sort of smash CGI onto it, uh, a lot of those animators then just after like Princess and the what is it, Princess and the Frog, and did bombed, and I think Home on the Range kind of bombed, and then I
Mm,
think I've read somewhere that a lot of those animators ended up just like working on projections for Disney World, right? Like uh,
mm,
so the move to CGI did destroy a industry at Disney, and you could say, well, 2D animation lived on in Studio Ghibli. You could say there was kind of like a explosion of independent 2D animation after that. But I feel like a thing that made Disney great died when they made the transition to 3D. You can have artists like Glenn
mm.
Keane copying over from one field to the other, but now there's like a nut. Whoever the 3D artists are, they're taking Glenn Keane's ideas and trying to translate that into a 3D animated character. So I do see quality differences. I don't like mush all CGI movies into the same packages. There are qualitative differences that have to relate back to the artist who designs the world. And my guess is that it seems to me like a lot of the maybe so is what you're talking about basically things like rendering. Is it like CGI and AI renders the droplets of water? There isn't an individual person animating every droplet of water. They come up with some clever trick, like I think in
Yeah,
Nemo they
they
had the
click
trick
some
like they turn
buttons.
into a
They
million
do
balls.
the creative equivalent of prompts, and they get a yeah. But here's the key. Oh, by the way, you've got some friends in the back. If just
I
when you
see it. I
whatever.
see it. Okay, Cider's
Cool.
here, and Fox
Boy,
Factor is here.
Oh,
Welcome
great.
to the AI roundtable debate. Fight,
This
fight,
will be
fight.
fun. So okay, so rendering. I think everybody understands, and you know this with your art school background.
Yeah.
Rendering is is entirely robots coming up with that stuff, and you hope it's going to look okay. The thing is the animation is that way too. But you can, if you have, it's not just that Keane designed characters with his 2D expression. Like, so guys, Cider and Fitz, by the way, we're just kind of drilling it. Like, I thought Tangled is a particularly good 3D movie that everybody likes, and I'm trying to like prove a point with it.
okay.
But so the
Yeah, I'm
director
just
of
gonna
that
listen for
movie,
a little bit to
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
listen for a bit to catch up.
cool, cool.
Great.
So he literally he told people like don't just look at my drawings, which is what they were used to. This is me conceding a point. Because the technology kind of builds a groove for most creatives and they start to think in terms of the technology and they think of what's going to allow me to get home and see my family faster, I'll just look at some Glenn Keane art and then draw it. He said, no, you actually have to trace it in 3D. You actually have to pose those things. Like, I want you to do the whiteboard type equivalent where, like, you're gonna take my drawing and I'm gonna hit the action poses for every scene, and you actually have to have the 3D characters underneath traced to my 2D. So because they kept the robots the slaves in that movie, it's probably the best 3D movie that they've ever done. And then he retired, and then they never tried to do that again. And nobody had the chutzpah, nobody had the huevos in Disney to tell all these Disney animators that they had to trace their 2D drawings. So then it snapped back to the groove again of doing the most efficient animation they could, and then you get something like Frozen, which is it's infamously riddled, absolutely just speckled with serious technical errors and shortcuts. Like her hair clipping through, like stuff that you think, oh, is that what Matt means by AI just animates for you? Because like whatever the Frozen girl's name, like her hair goes through her arm at certain points, but no one and then they made like $2 billion from the cheapest production experience they've ever had in 3D, because they just slopped it together and they used models from Tangled, and now they're never looking back because they realized that volume, quantity is going to make them more money than quality.
Yeah,
but that's not an argument
for the streaming service. Yeah.
Yeah, so I get it. Like, kind of the medium becomes the message sometimes, and you just try to say, okay, what's my medium? 3D animation. Okay, what plugins can I use, to make this work so that my boss doesn't yell at me on Thursday? But that doesn't mean that animation's evil, even though it's almost entirely, it's just a point and click adventure game for animators, and it's really just built on the blood, sweat, and tears of coders and robots and artificial intelligence, the whole thing, tip to tail. And I guess so anyway, but that's, I mean, I know that's a little divergent from like how AI can affect people today with their projects. Can is AI okay? Is it even ethical? We had Midjourney, as you saw, like just 15 minutes before, like at 6:45, they updated their TOS, and now you can elect to not have your art fed through their algorithm anymore. So and they could have done that 6 months ago, but there was no controversy about this. So again, we have no idea why it's controversial now. It was a huge blow up all week, and by Friday they put their hands in the air. Oh, good. So you understand what's going on, Cider.
If you would please, this first one, and then I have another one behind
Cider.
Yep. Tor Books designed a cover for Fractal Noise by Christopher Paolini. During the process of creating this cover, we licensed an image from a reputable stock house. We were not aware that this image may have been generated by AI. Our in-house designer used the licensed image to create the cover, which was presented to Christopher for approval. Due to production constraints, we have decided to move ahead with our current cover. Tor Publishing Group has championed creators of the SFF community since our founding and will continue to do so. Now,
okay,
the next screen I have is ArtStation. They updated their terms of service 2 hours. Was it 2 hours? 2 hours ago, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I have this as soon as there it is. It says, our goal at ArtStation is to empower artists with tools to showcase their work. We have updated our terms of service to reflect new features added to ArtStation as it relates to the use of AI software in the creation of artwork posted on the platform. First, we have introduced a no AI tag. When you tag your projects using the no AI tag, the project will automatically be assigned to an HTML no AI meta tag. And what that means is that Google, even when you're searching for images, if you have asked it to leave out AI stuff, this is a way to get information from ArtStation that is not AI generated. So this will mark the project so that AI systems know you explicitly disallow the use of the project of this project and its contained content by AI systems. We have also updated the terms of service to reflect that it is prohibited to collect, aggregate, mine, scrape, or otherwise use content uploaded to ArtStation for the purposes of testing, importing, or integrating such content with AI or other algorithmic methods where any content has been tagged, labeled, or otherwise marked AI, no AI. So let's say that one of the Transformers artists for IDW says, bro, you can't use, no AI. You can't put my stuff through an AI any direction. And somebody does, like slaps like a page of Transformers into the Midjourney AI. That's now, according to ArtStation, that's something that they will like terminate your account for.
Wow.
Also, ArtStation acted upon that AI protest that happened. That's pretty cool.
Apparently, yeah, that's a huge deal. So it began with the Tor books having Midjourney output on a book for a new printed fantasy novel, right? Wow.
Yeah, that's
Someone
the way
used
I read
AI
it.
art as a cover for a book?
Yeah, accidentally. The publishing house that champions artists doing their thing accidentally apparently used AI art from a stock image website.
Okay, I don't know how you accidentally do that, but okay, yeah.
Well,
all
let's
right,
say
good
you're looking
going,
for like a
guys.
space
They're
background.
doing
Hold on,
pretty good.
let's
Yeah,
say you're
yeah, do
looking
we
for a
have-
space background, you know?
Yeah.
You wouldn't know.
Okay.
You wouldn't
Okay,
know.
one of those.
Okay.
But that's
By the way,
that's
Marm Cider is as you can tell, he's very good. He's a very seasoned podcaster, so he knows how to arrest the attention. He's really good at that. I know how to ramble, but he knows how to entertain. So thank you, Cider. That was actually okay. That explains it. So it wasn't my thread.
So I gave the AI generator a picture of a Power Ranger, and I asked it just with that picture alone, a like a comic cover of a Power Ranger. Just with that alone, I said painted by Alex Ross, and sent it on its way on version 4. And this is what it generated without any other directives of just that Power Ranger cover and the directive that it would be painted by Alex Ross.
The image you gave it was a photo.
No, it was a Power Ranger from one of the Boom Studio covers. I think it was a Green Ranger. Looks like it was the Green Ranger. In fact,
that has some like line work, like standard comic book cover type of.
Well, what the AI took was the figure. As you can see here, the figure is like at a half, like a waist up position. And this is what the AI took was the figure, the shape, and then compiled what I asked it to do, which was paint it like Alex Ross. And the only thing it could find to reference was superhero art. So it started painting with the colors and the shape of the Power Ranger source image and Alex Ross painting of superheroes. You see?
Yeah. You got the hot highlights that Alex does. And I mean, what do you think about that, Marv?
Well, didn't you get in trouble for making fun of Alex Ross at some point? All right, so it passes the squint test, right? So
I think he doesn't know fingers any more than AI does. I think if he didn't have photo reference, he wouldn't know how many fingers were on his own hand.
Do we have? Okay, wait. Is someone trying to get in? No, okay,
return
Matt.
this back later. Thank you.
Hello?
Fix, you got to mute.
Huh? Oh no.
Yeah, we can hear everything, man. Is somebody being robbed?
Yeah. Okay, actually, now that I'm talking, I guess I did want to bring up one quick thought that this has brought to my attention. Essentially, the difference between one of the questions is essentially these things that you were talking about with Tangled and like the programs and whatnot. They seem to be used as tools, and I see the argument often that AI is used as a tool. However, all the tools that have been created for art so far seem to be effectively additive to the process. So they make the process quicker, more streamlined, but they still have to have the human behind it pushing it forward. Whereas AI seems to be substitutive in nature, where it's a platform that's built not as a tool, but as like, it's not a better hammer. It's like an entire suite of construction tools. But that's just something I'm thinking. I'm gonna go home and get to a better mic. I'm sorry about this.
Yeah,
it's all right.
Cool.
You're our pushback. We needed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we've heard from. I actually kind of just want to maybe give everyone a chance to chime in. So basically, give us, if you gun to your head, what position do you take? Pro AI, anti AI? And I'm kind of like right on the fence. So Matt, let's start with you.
I think it's phenomenal as a tool. I'm probably super pro as a tool, and I don't see any reason to think this is going to take over the planet or something, or become like a T-2000. So I guess that means like I'm not even. Yeah, I don't get the fear people have. So yeah, so I guess I'm pretty pro on that level.
And Cider, I'm guessing kind of like from your commentary that you're kind of on the pro side, or maybe hardcore on the pro side.
Well, I'm not hardcore because like here's right here. This is AI generated. I slapped a logo on it to make it look cool, but this is AI generated. So just take in for a minute like how, like that's a manga cover. That's you'll
cool.
see that at Barnes and Noble.
Is that you, Croft? Is that? Did he run you through?
No, that's me.
Yeah, did you use my reference image? Did you?
No, that's
me.
That's me in my car. That's that. I put my picture in there, and I said biker and teal and gold, and I fed it that Power Ranger armor, and this is what it translated through. So this is what I wanted to show you. This has no heart. You look at this, you don't feel anything. It looks nice. It looks like something you should be interested in. You might be intrigued by it, but it's empty. You don't feel anything here. The colors are right. The shape is right. But there's just an inhuman sort of thing here. It's not right. Now, it fits the theme of what I want to happen in the book I'm writing related to this. But that's what you get out of AI art. It's great for design work. Like, I can show you some really scary stuff that the AI is able to do that, like, a concept designer is, like, completely obliterated out of the process with. Like, seriously, it's crazy. And so I believe AI is helpful in design work, but I think beyond that, you've left it because you have to have the soul, a human soul in art. That's what makes it art. Otherwise, it's just neat pictures and colors.
Maybe it's your soul that is, you can project yourself onto it. So you can say, wow, that looks really cool.
You mean just through the text inputs?
No, just looking at what the robot makes. Again, like this is the Ghost in the Shell is actually just a mirror kind of thing. Like maybe it's okay for you to be inspired by robot art. Not because the robot is inspiring, but because you as a human saw something cool in reality, because this stuff's real, and you said, wow, that's really neat. That really gets my noodle going, that gets that activates the almonds. What is immoral about that? I just don't understand why it has to be only humans, inspiring other humans. Why can't the robots inspire us?
And Quaff, did you want to sound in, or do you want to just keep?
Oh yeah.
You go.
I'll go.
I guess for me it's like I feel kind of a little bit of a sore spot because like I've kind of ramping up not ramping up, but like I kind of made a little bit of a name for myself in like concept art for like designing characters, and now I see like this AI art just coming in and everyone and I'm like, oh, there goes my little side gigs that I've been doing. But at the same time, I'm happy to see, I'm happy to see people getting inspired by it. Like see Cider posting all of his characters, and I'm like, I'm happy he can do it. But see what I mean? So it's kind of a little like my negativity towards it is kind of a little personal, I would say, not so much subjective on the whole grand scheme of things. Um, and I understand, like I'm tempted to use myself for my own characters and everything. So, I'm probably just gonna give into it in the end of the day. But right now, I'm like, I'm kind of on board with the no AI. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. It's valid.
But
all right, so let's circle back to
yeah, I like it.
All right, so
Okay.
that's interesting because like the question of will it replace? Like I'm starting to hear artists say, "Yeah, I lost work because of this," and I'm hearing more. And I think of the Luddites, right? Like because they had the same argument. Oh no, the machines are going to replace our job. We need to break the machines, and you feel for them because what are you supposed to do if a machine destroys your whole industry and destroys your livelihood? Right. But then once you have technology, you can't put it back in its box. Right. It's going to explode. It's good. The more useful it gets, the more it's going to be used. So I guess the reason why, so Matt you're asking me, well, why do people have this hesitation? I'm kind of in, this is a tool. It's a tool for good or evil. And I'm worried about it being used as a tool for evil. Right. But I do see the potential in this as a tool for good. Like if I had a magic button that let me take my idea and turn that into a Disney animation quality movie or a Studio Ghibli movie, like I'm pressing that button all day to get all my ideas out. So I would love a cheat, but I do kind of see the threat where if I'm using it, then it's no longer me making a artistic statement. It's just me pressing the button. And even some of your commentary earlier, Matthew, when we were going back and forth about Tangled, it's like you're not saying AI is just like a magic solution button. There seem to be intelligent and unintelligent ways of using the tool. If Tangled is an intelligent use of the CGI artists or the CGI people harmonizing with Glenn Keane's animation style, and Tangled is the cutthroat, cheap, quick, and dirty route. Maybe AI is something that can help us make things cheaper, quicker, and dirtier. And I'm totally down for finding cheap, quick, dirty solutions to artistic problems. But it could be a crutch. It could be something we start using in place of creative thinking, and then you start getting like a sameness deal. So let me tie it back into like stock imagery. Like there are memes about stock images where there are certain stock images that are so famous everybody can spot them instantly, and then
he's the guy that's always in pain. No, I was just saying, Harold. He's the guy that's always in pain. He's the smiling guy that looks like he's in agony. That's this. I think he's like from Poland.
Oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah, that guy. That guy's great.
Right. They become memes because of the goofiness. So, but if it's all if you have a small library of images, then we start spotting the pattern over and over and over again, right? Oh, that pose looks like that pose, looks like that pose. That helmet looks like that helmet, looks like that helmet. And for AI to be doing this, it needs artists to be feeding images and content into it. So it's sort of like if AI does kill off all the artists, there are going to be no more artists feeding in content into these AI machines that they can reference.
Sure.
Right. So it can't replace this entirely. Right. I'm just worried about if you destroy a area, let's say it destroys concept art illustration gigs, that creates a problem for concept artists. But maybe the light at the end of the tunnel is those concept artists can start using AI themselves on their own personal projects. Maybe it destroys kind of like grunt work for like studio assistants, but it makes it easier for those studio assistants to go start their own indie comic, right? So it's not pure evil, but I do see it shaking it. Anything that transforms the industry is gonna take someone's jobs. Like it's not just a joke that they're coming for the robots are coming for our gerbs, right? Oh, and Fitzfactor's here.
Yes, and this is my better place. I'm leaving for my phone.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
What do you have here, Cider? This looks really nice, and I see the hands and the feet look good. So
yeah, so just like using a magic 8-ball, you might occasionally get an answer that makes fucking sense. Rest of the time, it's just a chance that you get like a weird statement in response to your question. AI can give you really neat stuff, but you gotta it's like once in a million you'll hit something like this that like a little bit of photoshopping, and you don't need a concept artist. I'm not bragging. I'm not saying this is a good thing. But what I'm explaining is that right here, I have a concept artist that's designed every character in Ciderverse.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't find a use for that guy on this armor. A little bit of touch up with Photoshop on that helmet to move that stray red line, and this is ready to go. It even it came up with a logo for the character. Straighten that up in Illustrator, get rid of those jagged lines. That is a logo that doesn't exist anywhere else on Earth. And that again, this is such a strike of the hammer, though. You cannot get this consistency. Let me show you what happened when I took this image right here, this exact image, and gave it the parameters for Cidermax, which was the one I showed a little earlier, the teal guy. So I gave it the same parameters, and this is what it turned out using that same image you just saw. Now, look at this. It is not at all the same thing. You do not have the same front and back thing. You don't have the same full body thing on the front and back thing. You don't have the helmet off to the side. You don't have the logo. This AI is not consistent. It's why it's good for design work, because you can generate shit tons of variations and take an arm here, a leg there, a piece of armor, an ear. You can do whatever you want, like a buffet style with it. That's the only advantage you have with AI, is to just generate a shit ton of stuff that you can pick out your favorites from.
I mean, we're talking
someone
about
with a crew
now,
still
though,
has
right?
to come in and assemble the parts.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right? Like,
I still have to go to my
around. It's not magically fixing the I don't have to think about design anymore.
Exactly.
You still have to think about design. Yeah.
That one I showed you was a 1 in a million hammer strike. Like, you are not. I could not get that same thing to come up ever again. It was always different variations that were never as close.
So I hate, like, I don't know how you guys are going to feel about this, but there already is AI being made. Like NVIDIA is making one, already has one.
Mhm.
It's like Midjourney 1.0 right now. But there's a lot of people already developing 3D, just from prompt, 3D AI modeling now. So if you could get that strike of the hammer to give you a 3D model, obviously you're good for the rest of whatever your project is.
Yeah, and
So-
unfortunately, as much as I agree with you, Cider, where it currently stands, we're also seeing a very young program. So that strike of the hammer is going to become more consistent and stronger the further along you say, you did a good job here, do this type of thing again. You did a good job here. So, it's
a good
young.
point. Good point.
I actually I
Okay.
agreed with your definition of art. My pushback broadly in terms of society and how we consume art is this industrialization of art. So you were talking about how good it is for design, and the unfortunate thing about AI is, and you guys heard me at a grocery store. I had just checked out all of my stuff by myself at a self-checkout lane. Those things have replaced 15 to 1 now. You only need one person to look over 15 machines that do a self-checkout. So illustrating the point of we're looking at potentially a world where you have one artist who does touch-ups but can generate images 15 times faster than an individual artist could. So you have that issue where one, art in general is becoming samey, and that's due to this industrialization of entertainment, where people want to consume things that are 90% the same with 10% variation. And so we have so much art already out there that's the same. You just need to inject a little bit of variation in order for that to look unique enough for major entertainment studios. And so I see it potentially I do potentially see it as a job replacement in some sense, especially for design, simply due to the fact that it's able to generate things that maybe artists don't love, but clients love and consumers love. So
yeah,
that's an unfortunate fact of the matter of art is good,
Underworld
but we don't.
has a comment kind of like maybe segueing into what you're talking about. Fits. So he doesn't think, he's not sure about artists losing your job, because art also involves understanding function and movement, like parts moving. So it sounds like what you're talking about, Fitz, is, there's got to be somebody who understands how this works. But even if AI just generates 30 ideas, then that replaces the person who would have been sitting there generating the 30 ideas. So even if you have one person who still needs to be there stitching it together at the end, who understands this stuff, it won't kill all illustration jobs, but it could,
Right.
by simplifying the process, it's destroying work that illustrators used to do. Basically,
Potentially,
right?
because the concept art is compartmentalized. There are people that specialize in, taking rough sketches and whatnot, and then, functionally figuring out how are we going to model this, how are we going to do this. But there's also, quite a few people who do blue sky conceptualization, which is probably going to, go to the wayside in some ways, where it's like, the initial blue sky would be like the initial approach to how is the world going to look? What generally is this area going to be like? What is the thing going to be? How is it, not how does it function or how does it like move, like how do the gears turn, but like if you take like a widescreen shot, and you're approaching the space station, how does it look? And we've already seen with the the book cover, it can look convincing enough to have someone purchase it.
Yes, absolutely right.
So Fitz, do you envision a way of it helping you? Like, so I think we seem to be on the same page that there's a risk of this hampering work for illustrators. So what's its potential? If it's a tool for good, what's it going to help? What would it help a guy like you and me do in our creative practice?
That's a good question. You'll have to give me a minute to think about that.
All right.
Because it is not there's the easy answer of like, well, I could just offload all of my work onto this thing. But then like Cider said, I agree with him in terms of art. I actually do think in terms of like the soul of the person behind it. And to push back on Matt's point of why can't we let the machines inspire us, in a lot of ways, at least my philosophy of art has to do with, the human to human connection. And so, you're taking a machine that's essentially, amalgamized human ideas into, quote unquote new ideas, but at the same time, it's always on the backs of people who have already, pushed forward to have that connection.
I talked a lot about the soul of the artist in kind of like my pre-debate review, and like my argument is like human beings have souls. AI doesn't have a soul, so even if it gets perfect at making beautiful, perfect images every single time, the technology just gets better and better and better. I'm still not scared because human beings have that soul to them. Like it could damage my job, but it can't stop me from the process of creating.
Absolutely. I think my only pessimistic approach would be that in a lot of ways, the entertainment industry has been a boon for artists. The working artist now more than ever has ample opportunity to make, money off of what they create. And, we'll see whether or not that goes away. But I don't think it's going to stop people from making art. It just might stop as many people from being paid to make art, which is sad.
Unless we meet, so it's basically a question of does it come in and destroy the jobs, or does it drop down on top of the art industry and artists kind of like adapt to using it? Because if I'm using, Matt Crotts, you shared a tweet thread with me earlier. I forget the name of the writer, but basically a blog post on AI where he kind of like has like his blunt points about why he thinks this debate is happening. And one of his points was, should we even call AI art? Maybe we shouldn't call it art at all. And maybe that's why people are debating it. Because if you call it AI art, people instantly jump into the, oh, is this art question.
Yeah.
If you think about AI as this is an image generator, it gets a lot less controversial quickly, because we're not presenting this and saying this is a beautiful work of art, that's the equivalent of the soul of any, working artist. We're saying this is a way for me to make a lot of pictures quickly. And if it's just a way for me to make a lot of pictures quickly, it's basically like a glorified Google. It's a glorified Google search. It's searching a bunch of images, mashing something up together for me to look at. And if it's usable, that's great. But it's not making. It's still not making finished works of art. Like it's improved by leaps and bounds. We've talked a bit about whether these images have soul. I still continually see technical. I want to maybe like introduce like a technical problem I see in AI and see you guys play with that. So, the running gag is it doesn't know how many fingers hands have, or
Take a look
it
right
doesn't know
here.
how things attach. Right. But
Sure.
See right
I
here.
see that as
There's
something
like-
that's going to get better, right? They're going to train it. They're going to train an AI how to look at hands and count the fingers. But so
This is an
I guess
AI generated image, by the way. No human
Yeah.
being has ever donned this costume, took this pose, stood in that space. That space behind him does not exist on Earth. This is not a real picture.
yeah, it's passable. Now, so then Fitz, something you brought up is, in the entertainment industry, you have a lot of samey stuff. So if AI comes into a world where everything is samey and there isn't a lot of creative work going on, I feel like it could, like the joke I told Matt C is, we're going to have AI Star Wars movies where all of the characters are written by AI and all of they have an AI prompt to come up with some goofy Technicolor lightsaber, and the AI says, oh, it's a lightsaber that spins 6 lightsabers out in 6 directions, and that's the new lightsaber, right? And it's going to be basically lots of samey entertainment, consume the Star Wars movie forever, right? But I think the way AI thinks is an AI thinks by mashing things together without really knowing what those things are beyond here. I think that's why there's like this rare hammer strike element to it. It's mashing together images relating to these keywords, and it's sort of creepily good at maybe picking up on what those keywords are, maybe using search, right? But
Yep.
I don't think it knows. It's not smart enough to think the way like even a little kid. A little kid. I worked as an art tutor. A little kid thinks while they draw, and they're trying to demonstrate what they know about the world in their art, and the AI is rendering this beautiful 3D image, but the things it doesn't get are things that normal people do get.
Yeah, because
if you train an AI to play chess, it doesn't know how to play checkers. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's not actually like, notice how like we struggle. We're trying to apply like human language terms for ones and zeros, which is entirely fine. Like, it's not wrong to do that, but we got to catch ourselves. Like, we start to assemble this T1000 in our head when we use too many of these human verbs, and sometimes we have to reset and realize like AI actually isn't intelligent, and it doesn't actually think. Not in the sense that we're ascribing to it. It's just producing
Artificial intelligence in the same way that Splenda is artificial sugar, if you will. There's no like, there's nothing natural
like,
there. It's just a chemical.
Just because you go to your grocery freezer and you find almond milk in the fridge aisle next to 2% doesn't mean that almonds were milked. And doesn't even mean that nut water has to be refrigerated. It's just humans need it to be next to 2% because they build an association. Anything that's white and that looks like, well, maybe I don't follow that too far, but like understand that like it's what the thing itself is not anything like us, and it isn't trying to replace us, and isn't trying to do anything that would harm us. Like, it's just ones and zeros, but it's literally humans asking it to do all this stuff every step of the way in order to save time so that people can go home to their family faster. And it's always grunt work that it's taking on, including a lot of concept art. Frankly, is a lot of grunt work in the professional industry. And now, if that bleeds over into a Tor comic, a fantasy page that is just like a Starscape, maybe that's violating a sense of like where we feel like that's a classic genre that you cannot even sell covers in Tor unless it looks like a hand painted. You can't even sell photos on a Tor book, I'm sure. So like that's probably just crossing a cultural barrier, I feel like, which is fine.
Sci-fi books, yes. Fantasy books, no.
Yeah. So that's probably what a lot of this has to do with. If you just quickly, do you share my screen? You'll probably laugh at this for a second.
All right.
This is what 3D AI. This is 4 months ago, and
Very
remember
nice.
how far back 2D Midjourney was 4 months ago. But this is what it can do based on just these prompts. It can make
Pretty incredible.
Like a rabbit on a stack of pancakes.
Well, okay, so that's a good point. And maybe the ethical issue is like if used as the end product, I can see issue there. And then obviously the other ethical issue being, taking, copyrighted works and using that to train it. But I do understand and see the value in terms of like that Pinterest board idea. Because essentially, and I don't know about you guys, but when I design characters, I am pretty much just like looking at a bunch of stuff and mashing them together. So, I mean, to answer Marmaduke's question a while ago, I guess there would be value in potentially, speeding that up for idea generation. And I could see some potential interest there as like...
It's already being used like that in the professional circuits. It's only the hobbyist level where we're catching up to that and thinking and exploring the moral consequences of that. But when you have to get paid for a living to generate, 30 cider maxes in a week, like why not do that in 30 and 30 minutes and then take your Tahitian vacation? Like it's deeply humanist to explore these things. These are human tools. This is not giving our souls to the robots.
I think Neil Adams said professionals trace and only amateurs whine about tracing, right? Like the second it's your job, you look for the fastest, quickest, dirtiest way to solve it, right?
Yeah. What did Doug TenNapel say just earlier today? He said he traced Kirby background sometimes just for fun because he thought it'd be funny to put a Kirby background in one of his comics or something.
Nice.
And a lot of people, I use 3D models as reference in my comics. I think everybody knows that. I just think of it
manga
as a
industry's
tool.
built on it, like 3D models and unpaid, uncredited interns, referencing photographs heavily to do the backgrounds and all the grunt work you don't want to do, and then only one person's name gets put on the front of it at the end. John Paul Rubens studio system. He basically had little apprentices draw most of the painting. John Paul Rubens would come in and paint the hands and the faces, and I think he was the richest artist who ever lived, if you adjust for inflation.
Oh, funny.
Yeah,
that's how he put out all those paintings. Yeah.
In a way, I guess I use AI too, because I'll make 3D models for myself and then use like a line art filter thing to get 80% of the way there and then draw over it. So I mean,
that's AI.
That's
people didn't know it was AI.
Yeah, I think what I was meaning though in the grocery store was I can see that more easily as a tool. Whereas I think the main issue with like AI that a lot of people are having is that it's being used as like a replacement where, people are posting the full image is like, hey, this is like my work that I finished. And it's like, well, if it's a tool, it's the first step in making something, but no one like presents a hammer and says, here's the deck I built.
Yeah. And I think everyone's in agreement that maybe we need to press pause on the language being used and help people who feel like they're entering the artistic space now as artists because they're using prompt generators. Maybe we need a new word, honestly, or a new vocabulary to explain what's going on. But we can't use the existing vocabulary because that really is a violation of what the human process normally is for generating art. Like that's just not fair to anybody.
Yeah, I want to expand on that because if you have a guy who says I'm an AI artist and he enters prompts, he doesn't draw at all, but he enters prompts until he gets a good looking image and he posts that and he says I'm an artist. What he's setting himself up for is that he maybe he's good at finding good prompts and selecting images, but he's setting himself up for the fact that if everybody can do it. If everybody's an artist, then nobody's an artist in the world, then the word loses all meaning, right? And maybe this is something like the cultural problem. So Matt, you've talked about you've kind of like joked about the Reformation and how maybe AI is maybe like the reason it's hot is the threat that if anybody can be an artist, is nobody an artist? And
it's like the invention of the printing press. Yeah.
Right. So who's the king? Who's the kingmaker? Right. Because on the one hand, I don't like the idea of the academies or of there being some stuffy system that decides whether or not you're an artist. But on the other hand, I'm not enough of an anarchist that I think you can do absolutely anything and everything's art, anything's art, therefore art. If everything's art is then art is nothing. Right. Like the word has to mean something for you to want to do it. Right. So is that so? Are you advocating for not calling AI art at all, or do you want to like kind of like do the cheesy thing and saying, hey, anything's art if you project artsy feelings onto it, and it can be an AI image too. But like, what is art? Go for it.
Well, my understanding is like nobody here is thinking of this as art with a capital A.
Yeah,
and I think that's a good healthy instinct to pursue here. But the problem is that in times past, we used to be able to say that because we would look at something and say, I can tell by looking at that that's not art. And maybe we have to say, I can't just look at something anymore, frankly. I have to actually know, I have to know about what I'm looking at. And I have to know how, like, I got to know the provenance of it. You know, I got to know the history, and then I can say that's art. But it's not just because it's beautiful and it looks exactly like a Photoshop painting.
You know,
anymore.
Matt, you're stepping into the debate that happened a while ago with Scorsese and cinema versus film or whatnot, whatever terms he used.
I hate that.
But essentially, that's what it sounds like you're using.
Yeah, I don't want us to, because I'm really hesitant, because I do like the Reformation metaphor, though it does break down at some point. Because I love this idea of like this radical democratization of everyone now having visual interrogation devices for unlocking their dreams, basically. That's a generous way of talking about it, but I can tell like that's what Sider's doing here. And I have to respect, and he's a human being. He hasn't lost some of his humanity. He's actually enriching his humanity by using this robot tool and by making this robot tool his slave. And I'm trying to find ways to respect that. And I also don't want to say, I don't want to like gatekeep his ability to be inspired by whatever tools he finds just because he didn't draw it himself or pay a human being to draw it. I don't think those are the requirements for making art. Someone has to be paid, or even okay. Now I'm starting to say that this is art because I feel like in a way like he's getting an artistic. It's being received in a way that's very similar to art, and that's okay too because it's still in the mind. At no point did the robot think of this as art. The robot doesn't think, but Sider thinks, and Sider has an imagination, and he wants to explore something, and he's going to use tools. It could be a hammer, it could be a stone wheel, it could be an oil painting, it could be a robot on Midjourney. But he can find ways of exploring the stuff in his brain, in his heart, in his spirit, through robots. And I don't think that there should be a priesthood class of artists who say, thou shalt not enter this sacred temple. This is only for the clean. You have to be from our lineage. You have to have gone through. You have to pay, our school loans to come here. And if you have not done those things, you have to stay outside the temple. You have to go to the unclean ones. And if we feel like doing commission work for you, we will do it for a price. But otherwise, you will forever never be able to see your own art realized. Like, so that, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to tease out. Like, I'm not firmly fixed on this, but I know I'll probably be in the wrong. I don't know if I'll be on the wrong side of history because history could just be wrong in the future. But I will feel morally in the wrong if we're keeping people out of exploring these things and saying that this is a deeply positive, exciting endeavor for them to be using this every bit as much as commissioning an artist.
I definitely think the angry Twitter mob aspect, like I think there are going to be young artists who are going to be scared to use AI because they're scared of the angry Twitter mob. And I'm I'm trying to when I try to think redemptively about AI, I'm trying to think about the end result. So I look at the AI results, they always look off. But if I am thinking creatively about them and getting ideas from them, and I'm moving towards making my indie comic or making my, animated movie, then they become steps in a process towards a finished work that you could say is a work of art. Now, I guess if you have a concept artist, you say the concept art is art, and the movie that they finish when they're done with everything else is art. And then do we gatekeep AI? Well, sort of like it's exactly like the Renaissance process. Like these guys would draw their composition in charcoal, and then they'd pin holes in it and put dust through it, and then they'd make the painting. And they'd throw away the drawing because they don't care about the drawing. The drawing is a thing they use to make the finished painting, which is what they care about.
And concept artists don't care about concept art. The only people who don't care about concept art, like ask any concept art, like that's just a tool. As far as like they're chopping photos together, they're tracing stuff, they're doing anything because it has one purpose and one purpose only. It's not to be hung in a museum. They're not even thinking primarily about ArtStation if you're doing their job right. They're thinking about ideation. It's about visualizing something so that someone else can go make it. That's all it is. So it's just the charcoal drawing.
Let me show you this right here. This is a little more than that. This is what I explained in the tavern. This is spooky because you can't get consistency out of a comic, right? Out of an AI, and so a comic kind of falls into that. But you'll see here what happened is I asked it to imitate Alex Ross's style, but I fed it a page from Dan Mora's Power Rangers. Dan Mora drew it. I don't know who colored it, but you can see the two styles are competing against each other here. Neither one gets out of here. They collide in a very unsightly manner. But you can pair these up, these pages with the artist. I'm trying to dig one up right now. I made up a bunch of generations to make a point here a few days ago. But this you can use this. Let's say you're not designing Power Rangers. Let's say you're telling a story about a man and a woman that are traveling on a train together and a murder happens. So you don't need exact costumes. You don't need a big blazing S on the chest of every character, right? It's okay if the lady's jacket is a little inaccurate. So long as it's the same length and color, it doesn't really matter because a comic has slight inaccuracies here and there.
Wait a minute, Cider. We were talking about concept art. Are you talking about production art?
I am telling you that here's what happened when I took an Ethan Van Sciver page, okay? And I fed it in with drawn by Ethan Van Sciver. I gave it the exact same parameters of what you're looking at right here, but I just changed the source image and who drew it. So the source image I gave it is by Ethan, and then I asked the AI to draw Power Rangers in Ethan's style, and this is what it came up with. So that's not too far off. That's not too far off. Now, that's pretty clean, too, if you want to go in with Photoshop and fix that text, and you want to take out those boxes, and you can even cut out panels that work and panels that don't, and create a comic.
Cider, spell it out for us.
Okay, so here's the real simple.
Talking about production art.
Yes, here's the real simple nitty gritty. If you're doing a very simple story that doesn't require accurate costumes on every panel, you can create a comic in an afternoon with Midjourney AI and Adobe Photoshop. I'm sorry.
So the wrongness, in a way, that I think a lot of people feel is probably this philosophical battle where up until this point in humanity, every craft was almost also, craft or discipline, was a testament to some kind of patient persistence in terms of building upon that craft. So, when you're buying, let's say you're buying an Ethan Van Sciver comic book, for example, or, Pablo Picasso is a great, example. He whips out a quick portrait and someone says, well, wow, why is it so expensive? This is like, it took you 30 seconds. He's like, no, it took me 30 years. There's this there's this underlying philosophy that like, when we look at something that, someone's made, it's like the culmination of their life's efforts to get there. And in a lot of ways, this might be battling against that very fundamental, truth that we've always lived with.
Well, what if the robot says, "I'm the culmination of everybody's life works put together. I am 1,000 dreams every night. I am 1,000,000 careers, and I can work for all of you simultaneously."
What's the Newton quote? It's something like, however great I am is because I've stood on the shoulders of giants. Mid-Journey stood on the shoulders of every art that's ever been created.
Yeah. I wouldn't argue. I'm not arguing that because I'm not ascribing agency to these ones and zeros. But other people who are like evangelists for this. I'm not so far. I don't think of myself as an evangelist for this. I just see it as a democratizing.
I'm just saying it simply might just be discouraging to especially young artists to say, what's the point? Why even pursue this? Why would I spend 20 years of my life when I could just plug and play with what everyone else has done?
Well, why?
That's an honest question.
Well, okay, if you still need a skilled person, so I guess I'm trying to imagine a scenario where AI is perfect. I want to use it all the time in my art. Does it kill me as an artist to have AI do everything for me? And I've actually tried to think of what are things AI could do where I'd actually use it in my practice. And like the example I keep thinking of is if I want to write a comic about a knight, I don't want to spend 1,000 hours a page drawing chain link mail on him. So to me, an acceptable cheat would be if I could tap on it and tell the AI, fill in this shirt with linked chainmail that looks like my drawing, and it could do that for me. I take that shortcut because I care about getting the comic out and in production. I don't care about demonstrating my ability to draw 1,000 links of chainmail, right? When I do that, I'm paying a price. I'm paying the price that, maybe if I draw all the chain link mail myself, then I come up with some cool flourishes and maybe people praise, my intense level of detail in every single little panel of the comic. But the trade-off I'm making is I get the comic out, it's the way I want it, and I just use AI to save me time in a few aspects of it. But I really don't envision AI replacing what I do. So take a look, take these comic pages as an example. They pass the squint test for me of that looks like a comic page. And I find it fully believable that you can grab these panels and rearrange them and make your comic, though you're still making visual decisions that an artist needs to make to do that, right? Like, so maybe fits factor for the question of the young discouraged artist. The reason to learn to do it is so that even if you use the AI to make stuff for you, you still know what to do with that stuff and how to rejigger it so it looks good. You need to know what looks good, even if the AI helps you, right? So maybe like my problem with the AI will make comic books for us thesis is, does the AI know what logically happens from panel 1 to panel 2 to avoid having the reader get mixed up? Does it know in, say, like the middle panel on the right there, does it know that close up is adding emotional drama to the scene? So I basically see like the decisions I have to make as being so important. If I have AI do everything and I have no control over those artistic decisions.
So what I can tell you about this, right, is this is actually a blazing color of Superwoman. If you remember DC's New 52 Superwoman, where she was like, Lana Lang got all like nuclearified. So I have no idea where it decided black and white was the way to go. And I fed in Star Supreme's character designs. This is why you see the purple and gold and the piece on the chest that keeps changing. Yeah. So this is it. But if you were just going to, as you said, if you were just going to ask it to do composition, like it didn't matter what was actually in the panels, it just mattered the positioning and the panel structure. It assists again with the design process. What this does is that time and time again, when I work with artists, they talk about this, the panel design and how they want to be like very precise with it, and the scripting process that says what panel should be bigger than the other. As a writer, this makes it very easy for me to write a page. If I go out and I use an AI generator to come up with a battle scene 2-page spread, and it has nothing to do with my characters, but then I go to a text document and describe what I see from that AI thing into the panel direction for my artist that involves my characters, that involves my scene, I then have something wholly and entirely original to come to the market with. It's in the same way that you can
direct it. You can wait,
Exactly.
Cider, you can direct it panel by panel to get what you want, and not just have it reference an existing comic book
Well,
page. You can
he's
tell
going to collage
panel
it
one
later in Photoshop.
He's going to collage it later. Okay.
Right?
Well, no. In this example, I was saying if I wanted to tell my artist, there's a man sitting at the bar, a woman is walking in. The next panel, the man sitting at the bar is facing two men across the room. The man sitting at the bar is looking toward the woman is looking toward the man. This kind of thing. If I was, of course, in greater detail, but if I was to give this direction to my artist, I now have the task of laying out a page to them made much simpler because I can visualize how they're going to translate it.
Gotcha. So for you as a writer, what this process is helping you do is it's helping you make a picture of what you're bringing to your artist. You're not just taking this page and putting it out there as the finished page. You're saying to your artist, this is kind of roughly what I want, right?
Right. If you don't want to go and Photoshop up a comic book page, if you just want to use it as inspiration, there is a way to even get panel design from this thing. So you clear out all the boxes and show it to your artist and say, look at how these boxes just slash against each other like this. Can you do something similar, or can you copy this? You then have something like, if you're at a stumbling point and you're like writer's block or artist block or whatever you guys call it, if you're at that point where you're out of ideas, the AI steps in and says, here's some shit that makes no fucking sense, dude, but your imagination can hodgepodge it together with what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what helps about what you're describing there is you're describing in your thinking, you're adding your thinking as a writer, and we're assuming you're hiring an artist and the artist is adding their thinking
Correct.
as an artist. So the output of the AI is getting interpreted by creative minds to produce a finished product.
It's just the same as being inspired by an address on a bus, by an advertisement on a bus. It's that simple.
Or by literally like by a visual reference library. Like the old fashioned way would be you grab a book off a shelf, you kind of show them a Jack Kirby page and say, here, I want something like this. I don't know what, I don't know the details, but make something kind of like this. AI is giving you stuff that you can point at and say, make some stuff kind of like this. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Which honestly, a lot of artists do like it that way. A lot don't, and they would feel stifled by this. And right now, you gotta talk to very particular artists to get, for them to be okay with AI prompts for their art direction. But a lot of artists do kind of just want hey, can you just show me what you want so I can get it done? Because I can spend 3 hours thinking of how to do it and trial and erroring, and then 2 hours producing, or you could just show me, and then that saved me 3 hours. And now I can just get the page done in 2 instead of 5. So, which is the whole point of this. That's why it was created, to cut that down. So
that makes sense. It's interesting. I was thinking about, I have the rest of my book already thumbnailed out, and it's going to take me, a couple more months to finish it. I was thinking if I had a button to press that it would just be done, would I press it? And personally, I think my answer would be no. And I was trying to figure out why. I was like, why wouldn't I press it? But I think there's a, not maybe the selfish might be the wrong word, but there is a component of making art where you, it's for others, but it's also for yourself in a way. And that creation process is, rejuvenating for yourself, and then you share it with the world.
That's true.
So there's an old proverb. It is not about the destination. It is about the journey. And art exemplifies that, because any artist will tell you, as you all are, you never finish with the picture you started in your mind. Never. It never comes out like a Xerox. You never do that. It always evolves as you're going. It either improves or falls apart from your original vision from there. Now, that's where this can help. Pushing a button to get an instant result, it robs the soul. That's what I was referring to earlier. There's no soul there. That's why you can go onto stock photo websites and just type in AI art and just miles and miles and miles of everything. And there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's as static as a Lego piece. It makes you feel nothing. And now you attach that to a human narrative. So you take that AI picture and you put some poetry over the top of it. Congratulations, you've made an art piece. It's really low level, but you've made an art piece. You've applied soul to that. That picture is no longer drifting in the ethos of having no mother and no father. It has now been adopted by your will and made into something beautiful. If no one else than yourself. And that's the journey. You can just shit out a piece of art out of the AI thing, as I showed you, and it looks terrible. But when you plug it into something human, then you've made something entirely different. And it's not as simple as just like throwing some text over the top of it, but that's just an example of how it can be done. But the journey is important. You can't just start with the concept and just call that execution. That's not it at all. Any idea starts with a spark, and the AI can help that spark turn into a blaze.
And unless it's a tour, it's a published tour cover.
Well, here's the John Henry steam engine thing that I keep telling people about with this. You are not John Henry. This is not the steam engine. What this is we're evolving from the steel-belted radial into weaved mesh, okay? That's what we're doing. We're moving from the 4-inch wide tires on the 64 Mustang to the nice low-profile things that don't rattle your fucking jaw when you hit a bump, all right? That's what we're doing. I don't feel that this is anything more than the evolution of the paintbrush. This further helps us execute our imagination. We can treat it as an enemy if we want, but that's eventually going to tear down the wall because somebody's going to come through having said, yeah, I painted this over the top of an AI piece. An AI piece is in the background, but then I painted Princess Diana in front of it. So what do you do then? It's an original piece, but it's inspired by AI. Where are you at?
Yeah. There have been pros, people better than any of us who've been doing that for months now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
and they're just using it as part of their mid journey.
Well, I think
that's a good word.
In an artist,
it's almost as if that's why they called it.
No way.
I call it playing with toys, right? I want artists to have a let's play with toys mentality towards technology. So a bad art teacher would tell you don't use Photoshop because Photoshop will make you bad at art. A good art teacher tells you to draw with traditional ink and brush on paper and draw in Photoshop. Put as many competencies into your toolkit as you can possibly add. So I think if AI is something we add to the toolkit, it's an addition, not a subtraction.
Can I do a pushback though?
Yeah.
Going back to the whole ethical debate that is happening right now, it's almost though in a way the argument is that you're playing with toys that aren't yours. I mean, you have Greg Rutowski, whose name's been used, I think, like 30,000 times or something. Like, do you actually have, the ethical right to take all these people's, labors that they haven't let you use and
that's probably we should probably shift to that because that seems to be a huge wing of this criticism. Is it legal? Yes. Is it ethical? That seems like that's being revised even now in TOS agreements. So what do you guys think? Is it ethical to put in?
For the legal side, the problem is if the AI is obscure, if I can't tell how the AI is working, I sort of can't tell how heavily it's referencing. Because I know I'm in safe legal territory if I reference art and images and I rework it. But, my art teacher once told me one of her friends was a 70s photographer and he makes his living basically just getting royalty checks from people who rip off his Martin Luther King photos. Because everybody rips off his photos from Martin Luther King books and his lawyer contacts them and the checks come rolling in, right? So I feel like, so you can make if you trace a copyrighted image, you're running a risk. You're saying, oh, I hope I don't get caught. But every time you do that, you're running the risk that you get caught and you're told to pay up for it, right? So if the AI is taking a design and then copying that design as if AI is doing the equivalent of tracing, I feel like they've got an argument. If AI is taking a million poses and remixing them into a new pose that's kind of vaguely like all of these poses, and there's no one pose you can point at and say this is the pose it ripped off, maybe you're in safe territory
Yeah.
legally. Right. The worst example I've seen is kind of like this Sam Does Art thing, where it's like the AI bros, they want to troll Sam Does Art, and Sam Does Art doesn't like AI, so their bright idea is let's make a whole bunch of Sam Does Art AI programs, right, to troll him, right? I think he's got a good argument that I have a brand, that is my name, that's my trademark. You're taking my name, my trademark, and my art expressly for the purpose of making a program that imitates my art style. So, like, what is copyright law if it's not going to protect me and my artistic products from being used by someone without my, because I'm kind of like pro piracy, right? Like, I would rather live in pro piracy world where everything's up for grabs and it's a fair rule because it applies equally to everybody. But if we're going to have copyright law and trademark law and intellectual property law, then it's got to protect little dinky artists on the internet, just like it protects corporate Disney, right? Or why do we have the law?
Well, especially when you're using prompts with specific artist names for the sole, purpose of getting something that looks like their work. It seems like when we have copyright law in place, you think there'd be some kind of ramification for that. It's like, hey, if I see your prompt and it says like, do it like this guy who's still currently working and alive, do you owe him anything? And you kind of owe him your image in a way.
Can you? Well, here's the thing. Can you think of an equivalent scenario where you can say you can currently legally sue somebody for biting someone's style? Like, can you sue someone for playing a guitar solo in a Jimi Hendrix-like way, but it's entirely original? You can't. So I don't think fair. You can. Like, how could you even put what a style is on a patent form?
I think
it can't be quantified. So
okay,
well, but it's quantified through the text when you prompt.
Okay, well, maybe that's the argument. Yeah, maybe.
All right, I feel like it's the difference between it. I can copy someone's style. If I study Jack Kirby's art style and I practice to imitate it, I eventually imitate Jack Kirby's art style. And I don't think Jack Kirby can sue me for doing that because it's sort of like art styles are up for grabs. But if I take Jack Kirby's art and put it into a machine to make then I'm using Jack Kirby's art without his permission to do something with my program or to build a AI Jack Kirby drawing machine without the permission.
That's currently legal. Just so you know, that's currently legal.
It's currently legal for me to build a Jack Kirby.
You can say it is legal. Everything that Midjourney and all these other ones are doing is legal. Now, you guys can say that the laws need to change, and that's entirely fair. But that is legal.
I'm the pro-piracy guy, right?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, yeah. No laws were broken in making this. It's valid if people feel like laws should have been broken. Then that's a conversation people need to have, and we're starting to. Apparently, this is transgressing a lot of boundaries that people expect, like that they didn't see coming 6 months ago. So
let me interject with this copyright thing, okay? I'm not trying to spit in his face. I'm just kind of playing the devil's advocate with this because I personally like the way that this idealized version of Cidermax looks in the painting thing. But I am never going to hire Alex Ross to paint this character. I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to hire an artist to paint this character. It's not how I view his representation. I think the character would look really weird, in my opinion. Kind of like how he does here. But he's like all armored up and stuff like that. Because Alex does 50s style stuff. He doesn't get into even the 60s or 70s. He's firmly in that ye oldie stuff. When he tries to do the new Marvel characters, it looks really goofy because he doesn't do that that high-tech spandex look. He doesn't do that glowing LED effect very well. He has that incandescent bulb look, and that's about it. He doesn't do that. He's not incompetent, don't get me wrong. I can barely draw a stick figure, so don't get me wrong here. But Alex Ross is not known for doing modernist art, let's put it that way. So when you have an artist, they have the AI render this stuff out in their style, you then have you have to go to court over this, right? because you're right there saying by Alex Ross, right? Here's the problem. When it gets to the court has to then decide, is this fan art? Right? Is this fan art in an AI stuff? Because Alex Ross is not involved here. It is meant to evoke him. It's not a piece that someone even painted over. Alex Ross has never painted a character in this position. He's never painted a character in this style. He's never painted a character with this background. But this is his style. And so you have to ask yourself, is the artist then copywriting their style? And how does that because again, free speech is going to come into that. Because then where does your style become an actual artistic technique? Like how Donald Trump tried to copyright the phrase "you're fired."
Yeah,
but you can't because that's a free speech. Everybody says that every day. That's impossible. So, especially when it was his catchphrase on the show that was really popular. So again, this is where you're at. Is like a style then has to be copyright trademarked, and where's the boundary of that?
I don't think a style is concrete enough a idea that you could copyright it. An image is, a painting is concrete enough that you can say, I own the copyright on this painting. A trademark might, all right, so if you feed in Mickey Mouse logos into an AI and it tries to remix the Mickey Mouse logo, Disney's still going to sue you because they see the Mickey Mouse ears as a symbol of their company, right? And they're not going to care about any free speech arguments. They mentally take that as this is our thing, right? And nobody gets to touch.
But they lose. Remember, they sue everybody because they know they have more money, even when they will win just by outlasting. They don't have a legal case, but they can afford to throw cease and desist at everybody.
Well, why don't we look at a tangentially related industry and look at like music, for example, which there are many lawsuits over, style in a way, copying, but it's usually like note patterns, notation, whatnot. And then in the courts, they have to rule whether or not it was close enough to like this or that song. It happens all the time, but I guess that's a little bit more concrete because you can then look at like the notation and be like, oh, look, it's 1 for 1.
I have an example of this actually.
Okay.
So 2 years ago, I was just stumbling around on YouTube looking at cool shit. And I found this, Never Gonna Give You Up, which has been, if you're going to get copyright struck, dude, they have to hit every meme compilation every day. Okay. So that's a lot. Anyway, this is an AI was fed just a little bit of the song. As you can see here, the guy explains this. And then the AI has to carry on the rest of the song on its own, having no idea what Rick Astley is about, the lyrics, none of it. It's only given a little bit, and then it has to keep going. So here's the original, and the AI is going to pick up. We're no strangers to love. And you know the rules, and so do I. So come get them some I'm thinking of. You wouldn't get this one many of. Okay, that's not in the song. That part right there, not at all. In court, he could get away with that. That's considered a remix, and also because it's borrowing Rick Astley's tone, but it's warped it enough that it's not his still. You have an argument in court that that's an artistic remix that you didn't even need to have a commercial license to produce.
Right.
And now you're in a mess. Because Eminem can be singing Christmas songs for you.
Interesting. Yeah.
But do you think that big industries are going to allow that to continue? So what's interesting is
here's what I think. Here's what I think is going to happen. Okay, so you're going to go to Warner Brothers app, and you're going to go to the AI movie generator in 2030, and you're going to click whatever genre you want, and you get to cast Mrs. Doubtfire as a gunslinger in 2027 against Robin Williams as the genie, but he's attached to a motorcycle. And they go on an adventure together, but you have to pay $20 to have that made. That's one movie. If it fucks it up, you got to pay $20 again to have it generate another movie. And that's how they're going to do it. It's going to be the same thing with the music. If you want to hear Daft Punk sing Elvis Christmas songs, you got to pay the money, whatever they want for that, $5 a song. And that's what they're going to do for you, is they're going to give you the AI that'll give you your dream come true, but you got to pay per play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, aren't like
Ryan, welcome, by
actors
the way.
are already like in like their wills and things putting like not to use their images like post-mortem.
Yeah,
and whatnot.
Robin Williams was very smart about that. They had to cast somebody else in that Genie movie instead of like what was it,
Deep
Darth?
faking him, yeah.
Who is the guy in Star Wars that they've really Darth Moth or whatever his name, Grand Moth.
Yeah.
The Grand Mothing dead Robin Williams into the live action Genie
that'd be
movie.
amazing.
Blah.
Yeah. There's the guy with the super strong cheekbones, and they did that guy too.
Yeah.
To just to speak quickly to what Ryan's bringing up. Hi, Ryan, by the way. He's been interacting pretty thoroughly on this too, on the Twitters. Until today, part of the TOS for ArtStation is that just like the TOS that you agreed to when you logged in, with your first Facebook account in 2004 or something. Like if you voluntarily put content on their platform, they legally have the right to use that for profit, including third parties like AI being able to scrape it to generate original content based off of what you voluntarily put on their site.
Oh my goodness.
So that's been, I mean, this is, and again, like that doesn't mean, okay, so we've been doing that, so that makes it okay. If we need to wake up and say we no longer like Facebook anymore, what they've been doing for what their business model has been for 15 years because we don't like what AI has been doing for the last 6 months, that's a conversation we can have. But this is how the internet runs and monetizes itself, is that we put our personal data, whether it's our location or our age, sex, gender, all the way up to our artwork online, and other people monetize it and they don't pay us. Sometimes we can tell ourselves, I think Ryan might have brought this up in a thread. Sometimes we can say, well, Google makes a Google amount of money monetizing me without my permission, or with my permission, but I didn't read the TOS. So they can do it legally, but I use Google Drive a heck of a lot, and I get an email account that I don't have to pay for, so I don't have to use America Online anymore. There's a lot of things that they give me as thanks for them monetizing at every data point of my personal property, including all my art that I put on that they show on Google Image Search. So, but is that the argument? Are we going to die on that hill? We're going to say, like, I don't know. So this is part of the online space, is things take from, like, we put stuff voluntarily online and other things use us to make money for other people. And then we find out much later. Very rarely do we find this out, but sometimes we find out later that we've been monetized for something that we didn't know about.
What's crazy is I just want to interject here because I actually remember years ago this being like an issue with ArtStation, and when they had their like when you signed up, they'd have the whole legal contract, and then they have like a TLDR like next to each section to explain what each section meant. And I remember reading under the section that talked about how they could like repurpose or reuse your work. Like the TLDR specifically talked about how, like, we need to put this so that we can make thumbnails of your work, because technically that's us cropping it. We need to have this so that we can like have it show up on Google, because that's technically us putting it somewhere else. So, I'm not going to say that they were lying, like, oh, I don't, we're selling your artwork on the side and whatnot. But in a way, it some of these places do seem a little dishonest, at least with like their explanation of why they need to do what they're doing. And now it's kind of being used against artists. I just read a post by an artist who's pretty upset with this, because I know ArtStation just allowed you to check a box that says don't use my AI, but they don't have a check for all of your work that's already published. And he like just did a quick like calculator of like, he's been using it for years and years, and he's been posting. He's like, it's going to take me like, I think it was like 3 or 4 hours just to like click image, no, click image, no, click image, no. It's like, oh my goodness.
And this is a runaway train. Like now, like I like
too
that they
late.
responded to the outrage, but now like there's blood in the water right now, and a lot of people are going to be like, a lot of business models are going to probably, I don't know if they're going to be taken down. I doubt that. There's
No.
way too much money in AI. That steam train is already on its way. But
All right, so
there's going to
I want to
be
talk about the stream train, and so I want to get to. I have my own thought on Ryan Drew's question because I've seen some of the back and forth.
Mhm.
So it's, how is AI even able to produce the style of an artist? Is there any infringement in the engineers using artwork to build their databases, visual data sets from the start? So we're kind of going on. We've got the ethical and the legal distinction going on at the same time. And I'm not a lawyer, right? Sorry, this is not legal advice. So what I'm hearing from you guys is right now, it's legal. It would be legal. It's theoretically legal for someone to grab all of Kyrie and then just put the pages of Kyrie into their database to make a Kyrie art style generator. And Matt Crotts can't legally say you can't do that, right? No, but that doesn't mean it's a matter that's been decided in law or legislation. That just means we're still in a, I don't know, legal gray. No one's sued anyone yet. So something could be legal because there's no law outlining it yet, but that doesn't mean there's not going to be a lawsuit that kind of like sets the stage or sets the pattern for future case law, right?
Well, there's kind of, I mean, again, like I'm not a lawyer, but there's precedent. Like, I mean, the internet's been around for a while, so like the reason why the TOSs are being built the way they are is because there's legal precedent that protects these platforms.
Mm-hmm.
Like
part
they
of your
can
argument
verbiage
is,
this stuff, right?
yeah, if I'm using a platform and its terms of service say they get to do this with my art, I sort of don't get to whine and complain that they're using my art in a way I don't like if I pretended to read and then agreed to the terms of service, right? So maybe the answer is artists have to retreat from these platforms if they don't want it being used by the AI. And something I've said on Twitter is if one of these AI bros gives me the opportunity to get a fraction of a penny from every one of my drawings that's used, I don't care if it's like 1/100th of a penny, right? That's a way to monetize my creative labor. So one solution to the ethical and legal problem might be the almighty dollar, right? Like if you would like to make a little money with this, then we'll cut you in on it. I think what's kind of like has offended people is the idea that I'm using this art site and then it just gives me a notification saying we're going to try it. Like that was the DeviantArt thing. The DeviantArt thing, and I actually think the Metal references. DeviantArt is playing with the idea of doing AI. I think they at first said you have to check a box to opt out of AI. People got mad. DeviantArt apologized and said, okay, we're going to change it so you can check a box to opt into AI. And I think that's an example of DeviantArt kind of doing the right thing, where if you want to play this game with us, you volunteer to play this game with us. Because I get the argument that if you don't like the terms of service, don't use the platform. But if you want people to use the platform, make the platform fit with what the users would actually like. So I think that's an example of maybe positive blowback and DeviantArt responding well.
Yeah, I agree with Matt. You're just not gonna. The internet's been around too long. You're not going to see that happen because, I mean, let's take something that's like super like low, like lowest form of entertainment, which would be like maybe reactions to things. I mean, you have people that can stream to 20K people on Twitch, and all they're doing is watching a video, and as long as they add their own commentary, it's deemed transformative enough that those 20,000 people that don't go to that video and watch it for themselves, and that guy doesn't get any money. It's like, well, he doesn't have any right to get any penny from that person's stream because they transformed the content enough. And so, you take something like the AI and see how transformative it is, compare it to current fair use labor laws. I don't see I don't see much ground to stand on in terms of like even getting a penny from people utilizing the style of your stuff.
And there's right, and that's where the legal versus maybe ethical part comes in. So like I could get the argument that legally I can't say anything, But if you start a creative venture, like the question is maybe for the AI bros is, do you just want to make this machine and, screw artists? We don't care what they think about our drawing program. Or do you want to get artists using your program and getting them excited about it? And if you want to get them excited about it, then that's an avenue to get artists excited about it, is what I'm saying. And so distinguishing it from the legal issue of, do you have a claim? I feel like that it's like Shutterstock. The reason photographers submit photographs to Shutterstock is because they're hoping to get royalties from people using their photos, right? If it's going to be a booming industry and a rising tide raises all boats, I'm basically saying the AI bros could win artists to their cause by arguing this could be a way of monetizing your creative labor, right?
Yeah,
I'm thinking more aspirationally.
Okay, that makes sense.
I care about the ethical problem. Yeah.
Well, so maybe, ethically, maybe we need to talk about, like, I think it's okay to just explore alternative, like, just imagine different internet scenarios. Like, that's okay. And so could we imagine like a pay to play for the internet? Maybe Google image search, there is nothing like that. There's no equivalent. There's no global networking anymore, and you might have to buy just to access certain sections, because everyone needs to get their piece of that pie, I guess.
It's just like the opposite of what I wish the internet was.
Yeah, right. And I don't know if Marm gets a penny, maybe Marm should get a penny every time someone even looks at his art online, because it's, I don't know, like, and I'm not trying to be like glib. Like, I'm thinking, I could see an ethical argument for that. Like, I don't know, like I got to pay to walk into a museum. Why do I? Maybe I should pay to even go to his website. I should pay.
But why are they even asking people to opt in? Why are they even asking people to opt in and opt out, if not to give them some legal coverage? If you say you opted into having your art used by AI, so you may not have read the terms of service when you signed it, but that's the terms of service agreement you signed. That protects them, because I technically said, yes, you may use my art to make AI, right? If they're just acting under these...
I don't think they were trying to protect themselves legally. I think they were trying to protect their business model so that people didn't flood off of AI. I mean, off of ArtStation, because they were putting, like, their profile pictures were changing to say this no AI art image, and people, like, there was a peasants revolt. and in order to protect their branding, they had to say, okay, we're gonna change this whole model so that people stay and they don't go back to DeviantArt or something. That, I think that's what was going on. It had nothing to do with, and maybe that's part of what's confusing people, is they thought maybe they were about to get sued or something. And I don't think that was going on. They have better lawyers than we do, but they wanted to keep their image.
So,
but what do you think? Like, should people pay to use should people pay to, like, interact with, like, maybe I should pay a penny to save Marmaduke's art in a folder on my desktop?
Can I use their code? Can I say, well, everything on the internet's free, so this Midjourney AI code, wow, that looks really cool. I got an idea. I'll copy the Midjourney. I'll call it Marmjourney AI. I'll just copy and paste their code, and I'll start the Marmjourney AI, and I'll feed all my art.
Some are open source.
Yeah.
Which you could change a little bit and then monetize yourself.
Under the presumption that it is for free. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So part of the internet, the internet I like is the free chaotic internet. And some of these AI guys are, like NFT bros, AI bros, they're the open source free internet guys, right? Like, let's just make anything, let's just put it out there and let people play with it, right? And I feel like if you play in that part of the internet, you're basically saying, I'm okay with chaos and anarchy. If I make memes and put them on 4chan, I'm sort of voting that it's okay to spread my memes around the internet. I don't get to come back later and say, oh, I'm anonymous user 10102226, and I created soy wojak number 23, right? Like, I'm voting to be part of anarchy world.
Yeah, that Pepe guy got ran through the mud when he tried to bring Pepe back from the memers.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah, just think that's a great example.
And then sometimes the internet meme world kicks down your door and takes your stuff and uses it anyway, right?
Yep.
But if we're talking about the business world, if it's the Shutterstock starts an AI program and they use assets for the program, well, it's kind of like, well, are they licensing these assets or not? Like if I say to Shutterstock, here is my photo, you get to sell my photo as long as I get a teeny tiny little percentage of, Shutterstock takes their cut. Can Shutterstock get around that by saying, oh, you gave us your photo, but if we put it through AI, it's magically different, and now we don't owe you a penny, right?
So let me enter this. So let me enter this into the lexicon of the conversation. A little earlier, Ryan asked, how is an AI even able to reproduce an artist's style? So as you know, when I first presented this, I had only found a Power Ranger cover and given it to the AI and asked it, and simply given it the prompt, painted by Alex Ross. That was it. That's all I gave it. I didn't give it any other, version 4. So that way it was the latest version of Midjourney. It had no other instruction other than to base the outcome off of the Power Ranger cover that I gave it, comic cover that I gave it, and also Alex Ross's style. Now, because Alex Ross has never done a Power Ranger, it did its best Google search. This is where it pulls its information from, right? So it did its best Google search referencing labeled Alex Ross art. And so this is what it came up with, was superheroes that followed the color code and like facial obstruction, like a helmet would be there. But of course, Alex has never done that. So the art could not pull a Power Ranger from Alex's library. So instead it created Batman in various forms and whatever Thor girl is about there. So this is what happens with it. So like, let's take a lesser known artist like Comic Book Hut. So you enter you give it a comic book page and you say
the only two people who know who that is.
Exactly. So that's the point. So if you throw that in there, it's not going to give you back anything like that. It's going to give way to the reference of comic book and give you a comic book, but is not going to be in Comic Book Hut style because the AI could not find enough information to reproduce. Now,
it's even just to augment what you're saying. It's not just using Alex Ross tagged art. It's using all art tagged with Alex Ross.
That's the other point I was about to bring up.
Okay, you do it. You'll do it better.
So what happens is that because this is pulling from Google, right? Mainly, its library is going to be able to draw from things that are not marked Alex Ross. So no matter what you do, you guys have done Pinterest searches and some random ass shit comes up. Same thing with Google. You'll be scrolling along pictures of Superman and all of a sudden Tom Brady's in the fucking middle of it. So you're looking at like a system where there's no way to avoid your work being absorbed into this machine, either by your will or otherwise. They will find a way. Just as the memers tracked, what's his face, all over Shia LaBeouf, all over the world, they will find a way to put Alex Ross's art, even though he's legally requested otherwise, into the AI art. They will find a way.
Because they don't even have to plug it in. The search feature is finding, as long as it can be searched for on Google, it can be plugged into an AI system.
Here's as vague as you can get.
Yeah.
Brightly colored, 50s style superhero painting. What are you going to do? Who are you going to run into? Norman Rockwell and Alex Ross. That's all you got.
That's a good point. So you do have to rethink. You have to have the intestinal fortitude to maybe reconsider Google itself.
And Google's not something you can control either, because somebody finds your picture on ArtStation, they take a screenshot and put it on their Twitter because they think it's cool. I see that happen every day. There's a beautiful picture, a painted picture of Kimberly and Tommy from the Power Rangers. Nobody knows where it fucking came from because somebody screenshotted it off of Instagram and doesn't remember who fucking made it. So that's how
many websites say like you can't actually save this when you right click, or on your phone, that feature doesn't, it doesn't actually save in your phone when you click save in your phone. So you just screen cap it. I do that all the time. And then I put it in my Pinterest library.
Yeah. So the AI doesn't have a private library to pull from. There's no way it could have there's no storage unit large enough to contain what Midjourney is pulling from.
What's interesting is that that's also one of the reasons why I buy a lot of books for reference, because of copyright laws and things. A lot of publishers were on top of this type of stuff. There's a lot of images that you can't find online because they just were never put there.
Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm. And again, you have to ask yourself, like, am I going to cut my nose off to spite my face? That's where you're at, is that, like, this is an inevitability. It's one of those things. So you can either treat it as flattering that someone wanted to put your art through the AI thing, or you can treat it as a crime. I'm not advocating either way, but I'm just explaining that that's where we're at.
I get the inevitable, like, technology will take over the world. You know, when you have a new technology, its natural inclination is to be used to its fullest extent, right? Yes. You can't wish people to stop using it once they have the tool in their hands and want to start using it. But I feel like that's different from the ethical and legal side of it. So like legal side of it is, you know, Google says the images on Google are subject to copyright because they're kind of like trying to nudge, wink, wink, let you know that you're running into copyright risks if you just pull things from Google. The AI is literally pulling things from Google, and what its protection seems to be the remixing of them. Like if you're, let's say I'm an idiot and I write an AI program that pulls from Google, and I don't train the AI enough to change things, and then it copies Mickey Mouse, and it doesn't change Mickey Mouse enough, and then Google, and then Disney comes and sues me, right? Like it'll always be Disney coming and suing me in my examples, right?
It is in real life.
The AI has to be smart enough to know how to transform. I guess that's the question. If the AI is smart enough to transform the art significantly, then it seems like it's just as on a safe legal ground as I am if I take inspiration and remix things. But if the AI art isn't well trained and it just copies something directly, and I copied Mickey Mouse directly, I'm increasing my legal risk, right? Like
it's actually impossible through AI, through Midjourney anyway, right? I tried this because I wanted to get a particular Cidermax design to come through, like 1-to-1 in a different style, and it wouldn't do it. The AI is because it's not intelligent. It's effectively looking through like beer goggles at the images and prompts you're giving it. And it's trying to just like slap an image together. If you actually watch it as it's developing it, the image actually comes closer and closer into focus as it's compiling what you're giving it, because it actually goes in order. If you give it a source image, it'll start there, and then it'll work through your prompts in order. That's why you don't put things that are important at the end. And so when you're... Yeah, except for the stuff that's actually like the programming directive, like your ratios, your V4 outlets. But like if you want a character that is in a superhero style, that needs to be like in the first few prompts. But what I'm getting at with this is that the AI cannot recreate 1-to-1 what it is given. It flatly is, because it's not intelligent. It doesn't know what you're asking it. Even if you just give it an image, like I showed you, I just gave you this Power Ranger thing and asked it to do Alex Ross, because it couldn't find anything that looked like a Power Ranger in Alex Ross's style. It couldn't do it without the prompt that I told it to give it that. So just give me a second here. I got to dig up the image because I just had it. Because okay, so when I fed just a simple words Power Ranger style Power Ranger theme right after Alex, painted by Alex Ross, right? So all I did was give it an image of a Power Ranger comic book cover painted by Alex Ross in the Power Ranger theme. That was it. That's all I gave it. And this is what it transformed it to. That's all I added from the prompt you just saw.
Wow.
But this is not Alex Ross's style. It looks nothing like it even. You see a little bit of that glare, but this is not Alex's style at all.
So by design, Midjourney AI is avoiding copying anything from Alex Ross too directly. We could see the Alex Ross style in the previous image, but it's sort of like the more prompts you get, the farther you get away from one particular image reference. We've been focusing this on what I think a lot of people have in mind are kind of like the trolley things, like the Sam Does Art thing, or a manga artist passes away and somebody makes an AI that imitates that particular artist, right? Do you guys think that there's any additional risk taken on if the entire program is modeled after? Because I can see the argument that Midjourney AI is sort of specifically avoiding coming too close to inciting the wrath of Disney. It's not going to make you a Mickey Mouse, a straight up Mickey Mouse that looks exactly like Mickey Mouse. It's going to change. It's going to change and mash together some different things. But what about the guys making a program modeled after one specific artist? Do you guys anticipate any legal problems with that, or do you have any ethical problems with that?
For me, I do, because I don't want AI to replace an artist. I want it to be able to generate concept art, so I can get an idea of what I want to approach an artist, a human being with hands to draw, what I want, right? So I have a clearer vision to present them with for a source, a base image to work with. I personally am opposed to the AI mastering Alex Ross's style and delivering like perfect 1950s Superman with a selfie stick. I don't want that at all. I never want that to be a thing. That feels sickening in my mind.
The creators of Midjourney are clear. Like they do a lot of speaking on this, and they like their intent is not to replace artists. So that's why they called it Midjourney. So it's
And I want to get back to something we've talked about. I think that it was Ryan Drew who kind of talked about like NFTs. So what this reminds me about NFT discourse is that was also a really hot topic on Twitter. Artists getting canceled. The reason I kind of like brought up my idea of maybe we need a royalties system is I feel like NFT bros really, really wanted artists to get on board NFTs, and they basically failed in their mission. Like a few artists made buku bucks from NFTs, but the crypto market crashed and it's kind of like not the hot thing anymore, right? I feel like that actually sounds like hopeful that the Midjourney AI guys are kind of specifically making that point, right? Because one way to look at it is if you are making the case that this is useful but not a replacement to an artist, that's basically like the AI guys offering this as a tool, right? So there is kind of like maybe like you have to have an ambassador spirit, because I'm kind of pro AI. The reason I specifically don't like the Sam Does Art AI debacle is that sort of AI bros saying F you to an artist, and where I think that the AI guys need to be getting artists excited about this and getting them on board with it, which partially means showing this has some creative potential. This has some utility. You can use this and bring it into your art practice. And the reason I brought up royalties is that's kind of a way of getting someone excited about, and maybe it's not even feasible, right? But that basically they have to find ways to get artists interested in using the tool if they want the tool to be expand and have people, utilizing this in Photoshop or Clip Studio Paint, right? That tech nerds in computer programming, tech nerds have to take into consideration the feelings of artists, even if it's true that this technology is the future and it's going to take over the world.
Can we imagine, like, other than direct monetization, what are some other benefits, like how Google gives back to us after they've taken everything from us by giving us an email that we don't have to pay for and an image search. By the way, this is what it came up with when I only said Mickey Mouse logo. So maybe the lawyers would go after us, but they would lose in court. If we could afford that litigation project, that would.
And what I was sharing was generated by AI, by the way. Yeah. This is the other threat that AI possesses.
The Alex Ross portrait, right?
I would say this is actually closer to Norman Rockwell. This is closer to Norman Rockwell's, actually.
But you can argue that this replaces an artist.
It does, because you can sell this in Walmart. There's not a person in the world that wouldn't look at that and be like, okay, that's cool. Again, there's no soul to it. You can tell that there's nothing here. You can feel that there's no intelligence behind this.
I feel that about a lot of Alex Ross paintings, but
it's your opinion too. But what I was talking about as a thread of this is that you can buy a commercial account from Midjourney. It's like $200 a month. You can buy a commercial account in which all of your generations are private and they're unlimited. So let's say this looks like the hodgepodgey stuff I showed you earlier. Those are only single generations. I didn't like run that down to get perfection. That was just bang, we're done, we're moving on. I didn't run that down. You can sit with like a picture that's just a little bit off and do thousands of generations to come up with something like this that normal average people on the street would not know where to look to find an AI's like, tip of the hand.
Cider, we were finding a kumbaya moment. and then you just
How
showed
dare you?
You literally showed us a better Superman that I think Alex Ross could paint. So
well, and again, I mean, like this is not like this is just sitting here and running the machine over and over and over and over again. It does not know what it's doing. It is moving colors and shapes around and hoping you like it. That's it. But this is that old, if you had 1 million chimpanzees in a room slapping typewriters, they'd eventually come up with Shakespeare. Well, and what do you know?
yeah. and then
You made the chimpanzee a little smarter, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and there's humans behind every chimpanzee training the chimpanzee to like to pick the banana on the left and not the tangerine on the right.
Exactly. You get this, and where do you ask an artist to come in? Where? And that's my biggest problem with this whole thing. That's the threat I see, is that you can, if you're patient and you want to run that AI for hours and hours and hours and hours, you can get something that looks like this. Not that loose stuff I was showing you.
I mean, that is amazing.
I've seen photography, dude, that I would swear that JFK eats at McDonald's today. But it's not. He's not there. But they literally sat there for hours until it was a perfect, meaning the AI didn't fuck up the wrapper even.
And you guys remember a couple years ago, there was a lot of talk about deep fake technology for the similar reasons.
That Tom Cruise guy that made all those crazy Tom Cruise videos, and he was just using a face replace AI.
And that was legal, apparently.
Tom Cruise couldn't hit him.
Okay,
Yeah.
But I thought that an actor's likeness was considered a commodity, right? Like I can't.
He didn't monetize it.
All right.
The deep faker didn't monetize it, and that's how he got away with it.
Okay.
Well, that's an important point then, I guess. So at what point? Yeah, I mean, this kind of gets back to like, I guess you just have to say, we can no longer say something is art by looking at it. We have to know its context.
So this is a really good way to like marry this into our philosophies here on YouTube. Okay, so there's a new phenomenon that it's not new necessarily, like it's brand new idea, but it's a phenomenon that's taking over right now. It's called mashups. For the past like 8 years or so, mashups have been getting very, very popular. So you take a song that has a similar BPM to another song, and you put them together, and you make a new one. We use one for the Dankstream intro. That's Kendrick Lamar's "We Gonna Be All Right" with "Last Christmas I Gave You My Heart." And the two songs couldn't be further apart, but it sounds like a wonderful jingle tune about the end of the year and how crazy a year it's been, but we're going to be okay in next year, And that never was the intention of either artist, either creation artist. But so we apply that to our own creations, right? So like, I took that mashup and I put that to a bunch of clips from the Dankstream, and people consider that to be like a really like atmospheric thing. They have like an emotional response to that, even though that song never existed in either artist's mind, nor for it to be used as an opening to a Chucklefuck show. So the same concept here is with the AI. Like any tool we have, if we choose to be abusive with it, it will be abused. If we choose to make it a warm light, which all mankind can gather around, it will be a warm light, which we all can gather around. It is our choice how we use the sword. And That's your ethical thing is like people want to use pesticides to kill people, but pesticides are handy to make sure your potatoes don't have a bug in the middle.
Yeah, are you guys okay? Like, is there a way to just define this just as a tool and agree
I'm fine
that,
with that. Yeah. I
yeah.
actually think that the fear that AI is going to take over the world is adding to the heat of
Yeah.
the discussion. Yeah. And I'm actually like, I'm about like 1% scared of AI taking over the world, right? I'm
Yeah.
totally fine with the idea of AI as tool. It may have some unfortunate effects of, you know, destroying work for basically, even if it does something bad and destroys work for some people, if it's a useful tool, it becomes a useful tool for everyone. So I see the good outweighing the bad in that scenario. The only point where I'm still stuck on is usage of images. And I feel like saying, well, but we've got to be used to that because, you know, Google and Pinterest and Facebook are already doing it to it. Like maybe that's like a status quo thing. Like, yeah, I know that's the status quo, and to be consistent, so I've got to be mad about everything that is that situation, right? The optimist in me still wants to kind of like, let's keep improving. Let's improve on the status quo, you know? Here's my thought. So James Earl Jones. James Earl Jones has basically signed over the rights of his voice to Disney, right? I don't have the right to take James Earl Jones's voice and make a James Earl Jones AI and pretend that I have James Earl Jones cast in my movie, right? Like people. Do I?
Matt, you remember that thing I showed you?
Which thing?
The thing with James Earl Jones.
No, you showed us Rick Astley.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, this is between Matt and I from a project we had worked on earlier. So I'm just going to show you this, guys, real quick.
Yeah, there is a James Earl Jonesifier.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them. I've used a Kanye one before.
I have. I actually. Here's a funny thing. They don't really have a good solid law for impressionists. Okay? So take a listen to this. I had this generated a few months ago for a project Matt and I were collaborating on. It's just a name. There's no plot details here. So here we go.
This guy. All right.
Test for Lock, Stock, Gypsy. Will the Seminole Gypsy crew survive the flood zone? Find out on Kickstarter.
Here we go.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh my word.
Hello, Matt. This is a narration test for Lock, Stock, Gypsy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's
all right.
That's how spooky this can get. And nobody can legally hit you for that, putting it in your Kickstarter, because it's an impressionist.
Even though you literally typed that person's name, and his name even represents a monetizable that's a private property, his likeness, his voice, and all that, it's all owned by Disney.
Oh wow, Matt's an AI.
Sounds like you're putting your text through speech.
Yeah, so that's okay. Meme uses of the meme world is a remix world, right? So, and I like that. Like I
Everything
give me James Earl Jones voice, and I can make James Earl Jones voice memes all day. Okay, this is what I want to tie back to. If you take AI and you give it to Disney, and Disney's evil, then Disney has the potential to kind of like use the law unfairly. We get to have an AI of James Earl Jones voice. You don't get to have that because we own that, and maybe we could get away with it as long as it's memes and we avoid, their sight and their wrath, right? Basically, to me, it's all a question of what's the consistent rule going to be. If it's if it's sort of chaotic meme world where everything's a free remix, that rule kind of like functionally exists, but it all functionally exists in a legal gray area. Theoretically, you could get sued for posting a Shrek meme, but they're not realistically going to sue everybody. So you're probably fine, right? If there's a strict copyright system, then you're always at risk of getting punished for that if you try to remix things that Disney owns or that a big corporation owns, right? I basically want either Disney to have a law that says they can't. I don't want Disney to be able to steal my art, and I can't steal Disney's art. So for me, liberalizing intellectual property might be a way of solving the issue where, yeah, Disney could take my art and put it into a system and I can't do anything about it. But then maybe I could take Disney movies and put it into a system and Disney can't do anything about it. So I don't know what the future holds, but I'd actually I would look forward more to an anarchic system. Maybe the internet can be that if you take the monetization angle out of it. If you make memes just for fun with Rick Astley and James Earl Jones in them, then maybe you're pretty safe because you're technically not monetizing it, right? So maybe what we need to do is get away from the idea that I have to make James Earl Jones memes and make a career out of it. Maybe I should just be making the James Earl Jones voice memes for fun.
And what we have to ask ourselves about that, right, is what are we doing when we are appropriating talent? What are we doing, right? Is the AI in the case of art generation a paintbrush, or is it a handcuff where you're now forever linked to somebody who used your style? Is this what are we looking at? Because it's a two-way street. You can't just tell the artist suck it up. Oh, well, I guess Matt didn't like that. But
suck it up, Matt.
Sounds like his phone was dying, I guess.
You can't just tell the artist to suck it up. That's not how this works. That's their talent. And as you said, it took like 30 years to build this talent, not just 30 seconds to make a page. So you end up with a moral dilemma that we're still trying to figure out with music. Take, for instance, how similar, you've heard the 4 chords of music, right? How so many songs have a similar 4 chords.
Yeah.
Well, who gets to sue on that? Exactly. So they keep doing it because nobody can just sue that melody. Nobody can sue that. However, they have copyrighted the 007 melody. You can hear that in every theme song, whether it's by a pop star or orchestra.
Yeah.
Yep. That's been copyrighted. However, if you take, for instance, Johnny Cash's song, Ring of Fire, but you don't use his voice and you don't use his musicians, but you borrow that melody and make a brand new song that's not about a ring of fire, but instead about a square of water, you're fine.
Maybe. I mean, there have been successful lawsuits over stuff like that. I think a huge one was Blurred Lines. I believe they lost the lawsuit, or like the what was his name? Robin Thicke, I think. If you check that out, he lost the lawsuit because the melody was too close to something else. I can't remember what it was.
Okay, so that is possible. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it is possible, but it's always super tricky. And like, if you ever follow the court cases, it kind of comes down to almost semantics, like who had the better lawyer and who could argue it, because it's really hard to pin down like, hey, this was my melody that you just changed a bit. It's like, what are you talking about? Because another thing is proving your steps on how you got there. So if you can show your, step 1, 2, 3, 4, how you got to where the song was, then you're usually good, because it's like, well, people can have similar creative processes and end up with things that are kind of close. But I think in their case, it was like, no, there was a direct tie to like, you were clearly inspired by this, and then you ended up pretty much copying and just like slowing down the BPM or something. So
I have a good example for metal here. The metal, excuse me. There's a channel called just Turbo, and he does Eurobeat remixes of songs that mostly have no business being a Eurobeat song, and they're really good. But he got hit really hard because he was using a lot of like copyrighted music, of course. So eventually his fans came to him and said, like, dude, just open up a Patreon. And he was like, a what? And so he made a video about discovering Patreon and how like being demonetized on YouTube didn't matter because he was making over $150 a month from $5 donations for people that wanted him to keep doing what he was doing.
Nice.
And so long as the original creator was able to monetize the ad revenue coming out of those videos, YouTube didn't have a problem with him continuing to make these remixes. And so That's how that works. You're right. The taste is what is monetized at that point, and there is no legal ground there. He can't be sued for that because YouTube is obeying their own rules about how the use of music is going.
Right.
So
yeah.
Bonnie Tyler, in the case of his Eurobeat remix of Bonnie Tyler's record company is getting all the money from that video. However, the $5 Patreons that jumped on because of that video go to Turbo.
That makes sense. Yeah, because I think if I remember correctly, with some of these ones, it was like the ad revenue that they had gotten from like YouTube and whatnot was what was like being disputed.
Right. If you're making money on it, they have a legal case. If you're not, it's just a fun little fan thing. They don't have a legal case. That's how the Tom Cruise guy didn't end up in prison.
Yeah, you don't run ads over it or something.
Yeah. Well, as long as YouTube can make money on it. So let's say that ArtStation just develops an entire AI section. And what they do is that every artist that they know is listed there, they offer like a monetization into their ad revenue. So the little pop-up box banner you get from Google that says buy a minivan today, that is going to pay Alex Ross for the dumb Cider Max art that I made and put on ArtStation. Similar to how YouTube treats it.
Yeah.
Similar to how YouTube treats it. Every person that is sort of has their stuff used without their consent is still being monetized, still getting a monetization from that. And then also the creator of that is able to then also either achieve notoriety or some payment for their work. And that's a way to solve it because that's how YouTube did it. Because again, those mashups are all over the place. Those remixes are all over the place. And YouTube hasn't done a mass billion video clean out of them.
What helped that work is basically it created an opportunity for companies to monetize old content. You make a Simpsons meme, the owners of the Simpsons can get a few pennies of profit out of the meme you made. If they're really nice, they might do revenue sharing with you. Yeah. And basically the Patreon route is kind of like a back door where technically I'm not getting any money for this fan content I'm making. Team 4-Star. Team 4-Star is on risky territory because they take Dragon Ball footage and they make a silly version of it. Come support us on Patreon because there's no way we're going to monetize this on YouTube. Yeah.
Right. Kate Bush recently rose to the top charts this year because of Stranger Things. Now, what they're going to tell you is that show did that. It didn't. The show inspired music artists on YouTube to make you go search it if you like, man. There's just billions of results. Yeah, everybody and their brother did a cover of that song. And that's what drove it to number one. It wasn't Stranger Things. It was the trending on YouTube that generated billions of videos based on that drove it to the top.
And then it was in everyone's content feed for a month. Yeah.
Hey guys, this was a super interesting conversation. I'm gonna have to head out. I've got a long drive tomorrow.
Yeah.
But thank you so much
for
talking with me.
Yeah, thanks, Fitz.
All right.
Great seeing you.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, see, it's there's a lot of ethical dimensions to this that I think we're teasing out pretty well because we operate already in a pretty difficult. It's a very complex internet space.
Yes.
That we're already in, but it doesn't have to stay that way. And already this week we've seen it change.
Yes.
So it's okay to argue for alternatives and to advocate for them, but yeah,
I feel I wouldn't my advice to Twitter artists who are genuinely upset by AI is I don't think canceling people for using it is going to solve anything. It's just going to make some people scared to use it. But if you think you could argue that I think that this art site should have this set of rules rather than this set of rules. That's not you canceling people. That's you using your voice to ask them, this is how I would like your platform to be. This is my vision of what a great art platform would look like, right? I think it becomes canceling when you destroy other people's ability to use it to use it in appropriate ways, right? So if I don't have the right to play with AI, that's you intruding on my creative practice, right? And if the whole argument is we're mad because we think AI is disrespecting people's artistic practice, you can't disrespect other people's artistic practice to defend other artistic practice. Like, you've got to at least respect that this is a tool that people could use ethically as a starting point, and then maybe make your case for how the internet could be structured, or how, you know, it could be monetized, or, you know, exceptions we want, like maybe we don't want to churn out an AI bot, you know, minutes after a respected artist dies and is, you know, grieving family. Like there are things you could
Sure.
do legally, but not the time or the place, right? And I feel like we could. I don't know. Like, it's been a hot topic on Twitter, but I've heard a surprising number of people who seem to get that just because AI has some of these ethical questions to it, that's not the same thing as AI being evil, right? And I have started to see, I think, maybe more productive uses of the tool. AI art is not going to take away jobs from starving artists. They will still be starving artists.
Yep.
Yeah,
you know what?
Just gonna kick you while you're down.
One last little dimension that I think is interesting. Someone in Cider and Ice circles, Sheila Aliens. Maybe Marm, you might have seen her around over the years too. But she collaborated with Narwhal on he had like a compendium of short stories that he put out at the end of this year, and it was like one of them is like Midjourney 1.0. So everybody has like the melty faces and everything looks kind of grainy and interesting, but samey. And he used that for that. There was that classic short story where somebody is about to fall, like he's about to be hanged, and then he goes through this entire adventurous journey at like in his mind about escaping, and it all happens in the like 3 seconds it takes for him to you know, take the short drop.
Yeah, I've read that one.
Yeah, you remember it. You probably read it in 9th grade or something. I did too. And well, he did a comic on it, and he did that. He did Midjourney for the backgrounds and a lot of the characters for the more like surrealist to get like at that dreamy like quality. And he just kind of drew over it. And the interesting thing is that there was a lot of feedback given on. I mean, when he was doing this was before Midjourney was controversial, but he was very smart, and he asked this person who was well known, Sheila Aliens, for being an early and very visible adopter of Midjourney and all these AI art bots. So like she's the lady that you go to ask, like she's the person I asked about how do I get onto Midjourney. So her like human social capital actually kind of lent to Narwhal and to other people, to the point where people are saying like, I don't know if I would accept AI art comics, but I've seen people say this, I would accept it from Sheila Aliens, which is that's a valid thing to say for them. It's very interesting, like that's where the ethical contours start to shape, is that if it's like I will accept it not just from anyone, but I will accept it from some people, which is interesting. I don't know how that will persist.
Is it just a cult of personality, or is it a humanization? So if I see a human being using this, that makes it more understandable that this isn't an inhuman, evil robot god. A person I like and respect sees the potential. So that kind of like,
like this is a person who's known, like no one knows if she can draw her way out of a paper bag, but all she does is AI prompting, and she's been exploring it before anyone was hip to it. So because she's built a human brand, I guess, on exploring it for its own sake, not trying to monetize it, and now she's collaborating, like she did all the prompts for the backgrounds and some of the characters on someone else's comic, and now people are asking her to make her own comic. I mean, maybe that's I mean, you could slice that any way you want. If you like her, you might say it's just she's humanized it in some way because she's contextualized it as hers, which is a funny thing to see. Or you could say it's cult of personality if you don't like her. But it's maybe there's room for that, which is weird. Maybe there are some people who can't draw that you will permit to have that as part of their portfolio. That's about as far as I'll go, but I'm seeing it happen. So that exists. That there are like people who they're not just showing up and annoying people with.
Gentlemen, I do have to excuse myself. I hate to interrupt, but I do have to excuse myself. I apologize.
Thanks for giving us your perspective on this as a writer cider. I appreciated that whole angle.
Yeah, and again, I believe in art being of the soul. So don't mistake my praise of AI for an abandonment of what human beings are only able to do. Not a machine. A machine cannot do what the human soul can do, and it never, ever will. I can't stress that enough.
Well, on that, I think we're all in agreement. I think we were wrapping up anyway, and then I had to divert into Sheila Aliens. But
well, no, I just have to go. I have a personal situation, so I will see you gentlemen later. But thank you very much for having me on, and have a good evening.
Yep, see you, buddy.
Adios. All right. Well, Matt, you started the whole Twitter kerfuffle. Do you have any closing thoughts for us?
I think, man, I've learned so much just this past week, and I learned a lot more. This is one of the cool things, and this is why I was hoping. I told you, like, I don't even typically want to live stream very much anymore. Yeah. But if it's a really interesting conversation, I know the best way to have a conversation is to, like, it's got to be beyond text. Like, if we can hear each other's the timbre in our voices and we can have a live conversation, ideally from people, coming at it from all different kinds of angles, we learn so much more than just, typing away on Twitter. So I learned a lot more tonight than I have all week. That's for sure.
Twitter's an anger simulator full of demons, eh? They're creating chaos.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, honestly, how much are we disagreeing with from any of these? We had 4 people on for most of the night. I think we were all saying kind of the same thing.
Yeah, it was
maybe with some gradations.
It's like we're on the same page. It's just we're interested in different angles on this thing, right?
Yeah, there's emphases. Yeah, which is encouraging, because I don't think the 4 of us are saying things that most people are probably saying, if you can get them into a room to talk about it, or on a live stream, rather than just texting at each other, trying to retweet, get clicks. I guess
I didn't give a chance to our other guests to, like, show their indie projects. So what I'll do is I will update the description with Twitter links for everybody. Matt, do you want to shill Kyrie while you're here?
Yeah. So I'm wrapping up Kyrie book 3. So it's my ancient Roman sword and sandal heist adventure series, and I was working on one of the pages tonight. I'm staring down at the final pages. I'm supposed to get this to the printer in 10 days. So
you gotta cook.
So order while you can.
All right, and thank you, Ryan Drew. Thank you, The Metal and Underworld Dream and everybody for joining the chat. I will update the description with links, and here's hoping we'll have more interesting discussions about art, faith, and the culture in the future. So with that, I'm #1 Marmaduke fan. Thank you all, and I will catch you later.
See y'all.